Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. I teach in Naruto, and the system says I am Tsunade's student. Chapter 21 Psychological Medical Ninja. Did I disturb your rest? Kitazawa asked somewhat embarrassedly. No, I was just about to have breakfast. Kurane shook her head and asked again, have you eaten? If not, I can cook you a bowl of ramen. Need not. Kitazawa explained, I always eat Ichiraku ramen for breakfast. I forgot that Ichiraku ramen is right next to your house, which is really convenient. Kurane Yui laughed heartily and said, then I'll trouble you to wait a few minutes. She turned around, her bare feet stepping on the carpet, her hips swaying slightly as she walked towards the living room. I don't have much to drink at home. Kurane poured herself a glass of water and said, just make do with this. Thank you. Kitazawa took the water and said. Kurane came to the dining table and plopped down. She picked up her chopsticks and began to eat her breakfast. Sorry to keep you waiting, we'll be going now. After breakfast, Kurane changed back into her classic attire. A white dress with a red right sleeve, bandages wrapped around the thigh, revealing long, slender, snow-white legs. Kurane Yui stopped at the entrance. She bent down, her hands supporting her on the wall, her jade-like feet slightly raised, revealing the fair and tender curves of her taut calves. 5 toes together, slipped into the short boots. After she finished dressing, she stomped her feet twice, causing her leg muscles to tremble slightly. What are you looking at? As Kurane changed her shoes, she noticed Kitazawa's gaze and asked with a smile. Enjoy the scenery. Kitazawa blinked and said. Where's the scenery here? After locking the door, Xiri Hong stepped forward, and a delicate fragrance wafted towards her. Where there are beautiful women, there is beautiful scenery. Kitazawa said with a serious expression. She gave him a cold look. This was the first time she had ever heard someone describe peeping in such a refined and elegant way. I won't hold it against you because you praised me. Kurane Yui abruptly changed the subject, getting down to business, and asked, are you confident you can persuade Yakumo's parents? No. Kitazawa shook his head and said, I don't even know her parents, how can I be sure? Her father was named Kurama Murakumo, and her mother was named Auriko. Although they were both jonin, they did not have bloodline limits. As Kurane walked, she explained, to be more precise, only Yakumo in the Kurama clan has awakened his bloodline limit. Is he the only hope for the entire clan? Kitazawa asked thoughtfully. Ah. Kurane Yui replied, I suspect that the reason Yakumo is so determined to become a ninja is because of the expectations of the Kurama clan. He is a good child. Kitazawa commented. Unfortunately, her fate was very bumpy in the original work. In a fit of rage, he unleashed the yin-style monster Ito, killing his parents. If it weren't for Naruto Uzumaki's help, even Kurane Yui wouldn't have survived. This is where Yakumo recuperates, it's called Satomajayaka Villa. Kurane Yui stopped in front of a very large courtyard and said. Kitazawa glanced around and thought to himself, what a rich bastard. Let's go see Yakumo first. After thinking for a moment, Yui Hong said, she should be painting on the hillside behind the villa right now. Ah! Kitazawa knew that Yakumo Kurama's painting was actually a manifestation of her bloodline limit. Simply put, she can turn the content of a painting into real life. For example, if you draw a lightning bolt pointing towards the Hokage building, then a lightning bolt will actually appear. Under Kurane's guidance, Kitazawa soon spotted Yakumo Kurama. She was sitting in front of the easel, holding a paintbrush, and was very seriously sketching the scenery in front of her. I'll go and talk to her. After Kitazawa finished speaking, he stepped forward. Kurane nodded and waited not far away. Why is it raining in the painting? Kitazawa looked at it for a few seconds and then asked. It was a perfectly clear day with no clouds, but in Yakumo Kurama's paintings, it was all rain and drizzle. A thought popped into Kitazawa's mind, please analyze the role of the weather here. Who are you? Kurama Yakumo turned to look at him and asked. I am Kitazawa, a teacher at the Ninja Academy. Kitazawa replied. Did my parents allow me to go to the Ninja Academy? Kurama Yakumo immediately put down his paintbrush, a look of surprise on his face, and asked. You really want to go to school? Kitazawa did not answer her question directly. Ah. Kurama Yakumo nodded and said, I want to become a ninja. If you want to do it, then do it. Kitazawa said softly. My body isn't up to par, I get out of breath after just a short training session, let alone fight like a ninja. Kurama Yakumo said with a somber expression. Who told you that becoming a ninja requires a body far superior to that of an ordinary person? Kitazawa countered with a question. Kurama Yakumo paused, then asked in a puzzled tone, are there any ninjas with poor health? In her mind, whether they were genjutsu ninjas or taijutsu ninjas, their bodies were never too bad. In a truly critical moment, even medical ninjas can pick up kunao and fight the enemy. No, you don't have it, but you can create it. Kitazawa said calmly, a ninja named Lu once said that there was originally no road on the ground, but as more people walked on it, it became a road. Can I? Kurama Yakumo's tone was full of insecurity. Do you really want to give up because of this? Kitazawa smiled and asked. In no mood. Kurama Yakumo gritted his teeth and said with great determination, I will definitely become a ninja. Yes, very energetic. Kitazawa nodded and said, you can't become an ordinary genjutsu ninja, but you can become a special genjutsu ninja. Page 23. Special. Kurama Yakumo looked at him, puzzled. Ordinary genjutsu ninjas target the five senses, sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Kitazawa explained, that's why battles for genjutsu ninjas are so intense, requiring a healthy body. Kurama Yakumo remained silent. This is why she couldn't become a regular ninja. But she immediately showed anticipation. Actually, there is another type of illusion, which is an illusion that targets the mind. Kitazawa met her gaze and said. Yakumo Kurama hesitated, as if he wanted to say something but then stopped. Kurane Yui had been teaching her for a while, so she had some understanding of illusion magic. But she had never heard of any illusion that could directly target the mind. Even the evening sun was slightly furrowed in brow. In fact, the ultimate goal of illusions cast through the five senses is to disrupt the enemy's mind. But illusions without the five senses as a medium simply do not exist. Others may not be able to do it, but you can, because your spirit is strong enough. Kitazawa guessed what she was thinking and spoke up. Kurane paused for a moment, then a look of realization dawned on her face. Yindun represents the power of the spirit. Yakumo Kurama's spiritual power was so strong that he created a monster named Ito out of thin air. She could absolutely transform this spiritual power into an attack to deal with the enemy. Kurane Yui didn't think of this because she had the mindset of a traditional ninja. Me? Kurama Yakumo looked surprised. Not only that, you can also become a one-of-a-kind psychological medical ninja to heal patients' psychological trauma. Kitazawa said with a faint smile. To explain it using the terminology from fantasy and martial arts novels, Kurama Yakumo specializes in spiritual cultivation, thus becoming a spiritual cultivator. In that instant, Kitazawa thought of Tsunade's hemophobia. If Yakumo Kurama can cure her, it will be a great achievement. He could also benefit from this and acquire a few advanced ninjutsu techniques to disguise the ninjutsu provided by the system. Psychological ninja. Kurama Yakumo muttered to himself. The resentment and bitterness she felt for not being able to become a ninja vanished at this moment, and a completely new world appeared before her eyes. Yui Hong's red lips parted slightly as she subconsciously looked at Kitazawa, a look of surprise on her face. Although it was the first time she had ever heard of so-called psychological medical ninjas, it was indeed feasible. She participated in the Third Shinobi World War, and many ninjas suffered psychological problems to varying degrees after the war. If there were truly psychological healers like Yakumo Kurama, their suffering could be reduced. Chapter 22 Sarutobi Hiruzen's Surprise. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Kurama Yakumo stood up, bowed, and said. Her eyes were filled with a raging fire, sweeping away the previous gloom and igniting a flame. It's too early to thank me now. Kitazawa smiled and said, I came here today to get you back to the Ninja Academy. Really? Kurama Yakumo paused for a moment, then asked excitedly. It is true. Kurane stepped forward and said, I had reservations before, but after hearing what Kitazawa just said, I support you. Thank you, Teacher Hong. Kurama Yakumo couldn't suppress the corners of his mouth, and a bright smile appeared on his face. Kurane Yui paused slightly, taken aback. This was the first time she had ever seen Yakumo Kurama so happy. Before, she was a slightly gloomy little girl who always looked sad. The concept of psychological medical ninjas is truly eye-opening for me. Kurane asked curiously, how did you come up with that idea? It was a result of a sudden inspiration. Kitazawa said casually. The real reason is that he was a psychologist in his previous life, but there is no such profession in the ninja world. Ninjas fight to the death, and none of them know if they will survive, so naturally they don't care about psychological issues. Without the relevant knowledge, one cannot have a flash of inspiration. Kurane Yui remarked with emotion, even as a genjutsu ninja, I never imagined this. It's just a concept. Kitazawa humbly stated, if you truly want to become a psychological medical ninja, there is still a long and difficult road ahead. I'm not afraid. Kurama Yakumo said decisively. Both her parents and Kurane Yui had tried to dissuade her from becoming a ninja. Now that there is hope, she cannot afford to miss it. Don't you still have Kitazawa-sensei? With a charming smile, Xiri Hong said, he will help you. Kurama Yakumo immediately looked at Kitazawa. Although she didn't know him before, his words just now had earned her approval or even admiration. For her, who had suffered for so long, it was undoubtedly a form of salvation. When it comes to yin-style escape techniques, I'm no match for you. Kitazawa corrected him, saying, I'll have to trouble you a lot then. No problem. Kurane patted her chest and said, you can come to me anytime. Kurama Yakumo glanced around and felt that the two teachers seemed to have a very good relationship. Let's go back. Kurane Yui patted Yakumo Kurama's head and said, don't worry, your parents will definitely agree. Okay. Kurama Yakumo took a deep breath, suppressing his excitement and nervousness. She packed up her painting supplies and followed Kurane Yui and Kitazawa back to the Satomi Hill Villa. You mean you want Yakumo to go back to the Ninja Academy? Kurama Murakumo frowned upon learning Kitazawa's purpose. Chief of the Saddle Horse Clan. Kurane Yui took the initiative to repeat Kitazawa's words. Anma Kanjiun was stunned. Specialized illusionist ninjas and psychological healer ninjas were all too novel to him. But soon he felt excited again. According to this theory, Yakumo Kurama might be able to revive the glory of the Kurama clan. Then I'll leave it to you, Kitazawa-sensei. Kurama Kanjiun said with a solemn expression. Whether it's true or not, it's always good to give it a try, since there's still hope. Thank you, Dad. Kurama Yakumo said gratefully. After Kitazawa and Kurane finished their business, they left Satomi Hill Villa. You should report this to the Hokage. Suddenly, Kurane Yui remembered something and said. Kitazawa was slightly taken aback, but then he understood. As a ninja clan possessing a bloodline limit, the Kurama clan naturally attracted the attention of Hiruzen Sarutobi. In particular, Yakumo Kurama showed unusual physical weakness from a young age. The fact that she awakened her bloodline limit could not be kept from Hiruzen Sarutobi. And this is a good thing. Kurane added, you might even receive a reward. Lend your auspicious words. Kitazawa followed her words and said, "I'll treat you to a meal then. I won't be polite." Kurane waved her hand and said with a radiant smile, "See you on Monday." Kitazawa watched her walk away. Current mission: help your classmate Yakumo Kurama return to the Ninja Academy. Quest reward: Enchanted Tree Binding Kill. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. The illusionary tree binding kill is a genjutsu that is not related to the Sharingan. In the original work, Kurane Yui used it to fight Itaki Uchiha. Its effect is to create an illusion in the enemy, making them feel bound by a tree, from which the user emerges to attack. Interestingly, this illusion was created to make the enemy mistakenly believe they had encountered Hashirama Senju's wood release, thus instilling fear in them. After withdrawing his gaze, Kitazawa turned and walked towards the Hokage building. As a teacher, he has Saturdays and Sundays, but the Hokage doesn't, he works all year round. In the original work, after Naruto Uzumaki became Hokage, he was extremely busy, practically a top-tier workhorse. Page 24. Kitazawa entered the Hokage's office after receiving permission. "It's Kitazawa." Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled and greeted him warmly. "Hokage-sama." Kitazawa wasn't surprised. Although he had only met Hiruzen Sarutobi a few times, he estimated that his ancestors for 18 generations had already been investigated because of Naruto Uzumaki. It's all for the sake of being politically correct and loyal. "I went to see Kurama Yakumo today." Kitazawa went straight to the point, saying, "I've already spoken to their parents and told them to let her go back to the Ninja Academy." "How do you know Yakumo Kurama?" Hiruzen Sarutobi countered with a question. "Hong and I are classmates." Kitazawa explained, "She asked me for help." "I forgot about that." Hiruzen Sarutobi asked, somewhat puzzled, "Did you come to me just to tell me this?" In his opinion, there was no need to come all the way to tell him about Kurama Yakumo's return to the Ninja Academy, such a trivial matter. After all, he is the Hokage, who is extremely busy. "I have an idea regarding Yakumo Kurama's bloodline limit." Kitazawa recounted his conversation with Kurama Yakumo again. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't care much at first, because, given the current situation, it was questionable whether Yakumo Kurama could even realize his potential. But when the topic turned to psychological medical ninjas, he was startled and instinctively sat up straight. Medical ninjas heal patients using yang release techniques. Now Kitazawa tells him that medical ninjas can also use yin release. Even though he was the Hokage, known as the Professor of Ninjutsu, he was still surprised. Most importantly, he felt that this psychological medical ninja might bring about a revolution. Hiruzen Sarutobi thought of Tsunade's hemophobia. Tsunade's importance to Konoha village is self-evident. If she can recover from her illness, that would be a wonderful thing. But Hiruzen Sarutobi had a sudden thought, and then he remembered the Uchiha clan, whose members were all mentally ill. Kitazawa said that he would let the psychological ninja treat the patient's psychological trauma. For example, one could adopt a method of absorbing negative emotions. After all, Ito is a yin-style monster, and its growth depends on absorbing negative emotions. However, when it comes to negative or extreme emotions, the Uchiha clan is no less capable. Chapter 23 Hinata Hyuga skips class. Your idea is indeed good. Hiruzen Sarutobi pondered for a few seconds and said, although it's difficult, the prospects are bright. The path of psychological medical ninja is one that no one has ever walked before. The most difficult part is that there is no relevant psychological ninjutsu, so Yakumo Kurama has to create his own. Building a complete system from scratch is something that ordinary ninjas cannot do. But if it succeeds, even if it only solves Tsunade's hemophobia, setting aside the problems of the Uchiha clan, it will still be worthwhile. Just go ahead and do it. I'll figure out how to handle any problems you encounter. Sarutobi Hiruzen said in a deep voice. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Kitazawa quickly agreed. With Hiruzen Sarutobi's permission, although he wasn't promoted, his status was effectively elevated. Safety is also guaranteed to a certain extent, so you won't be knocked unconscious and carried away by the underworld while walking down the street. Psychological medical ninjas involve a lot of knowledge of yin release. Hiruzen Sarutobi thought for a moment and said, "I'll have Haru take you to the archives. You can come and go freely from now on and read books on yin release." Kitazawa's eyes lit up. Translate the meaning of surprise. Don't mention this to anyone, the fewer people who know, the better. Hiruzen Sarutobi added. His main concern was that Shimura Danzo and his root society would cause trouble. If they find out about Yakumo Kurama's special status, they will definitely try to get involved. Moreover, Kitazawa is currently in close contact with Naruto Uzumaki, so another scene like "I get angry, you regret it, bang," will likely unfold. Yes. Kitazawa nodded. Haru is a ninja from the Naruto Anbu, and she wears a frog mask. The Anbu, short for Special Assassination Tactics Unit, is a group of elite ninjas who report directly to the Hokage and do all sorts of jobs. Under Haru's guidance, Kitazawa entered the archives room. He glanced at it briefly and thought to himself, just as I suspected. These books contain many records of illusions. From now on, the illusions rewarded by the system will have a source, and there's no need to worry about causing unnecessary trouble. The only downside is that there are only ordinary illusions here. There are no special illusion techniques, such as the dark walk technique created by Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage. Thinking about it carefully, it makes sense. This genjutsu can strip away light, perfectly countering the Uchiha clan. Ordinary people are not qualified to learn it. Kitazawa spent 2 full days in the archives. Because of the existence of the system, and because he didn't have much talent for illusion magic, he didn't learn illusion magic. He's been reading books on yin release for the past 2 days, and also figuring out how to train Kurama Yakumo. New week. Kitazawa arrived at the Ninja Academy. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino's voice rang out. Kitazawa stopped and looked at him. Senior Kitazawa. Umino Irika stepped forward and said, "Kurama Murakumo, the head of the Kurama clan, is waiting for you in your office. You've arrived quite early." Kitazawa smiled and said, "I understand, thank you for letting me know." "You?" Umino Irika hesitated to speak. Although the Kurama clan has declined, it is still a well-known ninja clan. Moreover, Kurama Murakumo was a jonin, which made him a big shot to the teachers at the Ninja Academy. He was very curious that such a person would specifically ask Kitazawa by name. "It's a secret." Kitazawa, in his riddle-solving manner, said with a smile. Umino Irika immediately began to imagine many different scenarios. Kitazawa said goodbye to him and went to his office. Teacher Kitazawa. As soon as Kurama Yakumo spotted him, he quickly stood up and greeted him happily. "Good morning, Yakumo." Kitazawa responded with a smile. "Kitazawa, I'll leave Yakumo to you. If you have any problems, just come to me." Kurama Murakumo said with a serious expression, "My Kurama clan still has some influence in Konoha." "Okay." Kitazawa nodded and said. After Kurama Murakumo left, Kurama Yakumo became much more relaxed, looking around with a lively and curious expression. But she was soon drawn to Kitazawa. Kurama Yakumo stepped forward, stood on tiptoe, and looked at the desk. "I'm writing your training plan." Kitazawa turned around and saw her earnest little face. "Physical training." Kurama Yakumo glanced at it and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Saturday's remarks made her think that she would give up her physical health and focus on her mental health. "Health is the most important thing," Kitazawa explained, "even the strongest spirit needs the support of the body. If one could reach the level of the Sage of Six Paths, then one could abandon the physical body. But in the ninja world, bloodline matters and bloodline determines the upper limit. The concentration of Kurama Yakumo is insufficient." "Ah!" Kurama Yakumo nodded. She does not resist physical training. In fact, she trained frequently at Satomijayaka Villa, which caused her body to be unable to withstand the training. Kitazawa's training plan was more reasonable, with a low training volume and an emphasis on gradual progress. Just then, there was a knock on the door. "I'll open the door." Kurama Yakumo arrived at the door in a few steps. She opened the door and found a beautiful little girl with white eyes standing outside. "You, who are you?" Hinata Hyuga saw the unfamiliar Yakumo Kurama and couldn't help but ask. Page 25. "I am Yakumo Kurama." Kurama Yakumo introduced himself, saying, "I am a transfer student in Class A of the first year." Hinata Hyuga tilted her head slightly, a look of confusion on her face. "What's going on? A transfer student arrived only a week after the start of the semester?" "Hinata." Kitazawa stood up, handed her a note, and said, "I'll take Yakumo to familiarize herself with the school first." Before Hinata could react, they had already left the office. She paused for a moment, then unfolded the small note in her hand. There were 2 sentences on it. "My first words to you are, feel free to have breakfast here." Hinata Hyuga felt a warmth in her heart. Kitazawa took Kurama Yakumo away to avoid embarrassing her, and also to keep her secret about being able to eat. But Hinata Hyuga felt uncomfortable. Because Kitazawa wasn't there, she always felt something was missing when she ate alone. "My second piece of advice is that you skip class after breakfast and come back in the afternoon." Hinata Hyuga's heart jumped into her throat. "I skipped class by myself? No, Kitazawa-sensei, I can't do it." Hinata Hyuga stood there, stunned, her face full of confusion. The school bell rang. Kitazawa and Kurama Yakumo entered the classroom. He glanced at Hinata Hyuga's empty seat and felt satisfied. The purpose of letting her skip class was to toughen her up. Of course, skipping class is ultimately a crooked path, and he has already thought of a new way to increase Hinata Hyuga's courage. "This is Kurama Yakumo." Kitazawa began by introducing, "Your new classmate. Is it the Kurama clan, who are skilled in illusions?" Yamanaka Ino curiously observed Kurama Yakumo. "As long as you don't try to steal Sasuke from me, it's fine." Sakura Harino felt a sense of unease. Because Yakumo Kurama was also quite beautiful. Nara Shikamaru stroked his chin. He remembered his father, Nara Shikaku, saying that Kurama Yakumo was in poor health. Could it be related to Kitazawa-sensei again? However, Nara Shikamaru quickly gave up on thinking because he was giving up. Chapter 24 Uchiha's Wild Laughter. Hinata Hyuga wandered aimlessly down the street. Before, when she skipped class, Kitazawa was there, so she didn't have to think about anything and could just follow him. But now she was all alone. After walking for a while, Hinata Hyuga had an idea, and she returned to the grove of trees. This time, fear was no longer on her mind. Hinata Hyuga took a deep breath and began her tree climbing training. Perhaps because of a change in her mindset, she felt that things were going exceptionally well today. By noon, she had climbed to the top of the tree for the first time. Hinata Hyuga clenched her fist, waved her hand, and a smile appeared on her small face. She glanced at the sun, realized the time, and quickly jumped down from the tree, running towards the Ninja Academy. "Teacher Kitazawa." Hinata Hyuga jogged into the office. "So timely." Kitazawa put down the bento box in his hand and joked, "It seems that my meal-eating ninjutsu has reached a level of perfection." Hinata Hyuga blushed slightly, unsure how to explain. She really didn't run so fast because she was in a hurry to eat. "Come over for dinner." Kitazawa couldn't help but laugh when he saw her embarrassed look. Hinata Hyuga felt even more embarrassed, but her body obeyed, and she sat down opposite him. "Where did you go this morning?" Kitazawa handed her a pair of chopsticks and asked. "I have completed the tree climbing training." Hinata Hyuga, reminded by him, quickly looked up at him and said, "Well done. You were the first to complete the tree climbing training. Even Sasuke couldn't compare to you." Kitazawa met her gaze, sensed her emotions, and praised her. Hinata Hyuga couldn't help but smile, her little feet dangling in the air. This wasn't the first time she had received praise, but it was the first time she had received praise from someone who truly respected her. In her mind, Kitazawa's current status is second only to Hyuga Hayashi. Improved chakra control will greatly help you master Gentle Fist. Kitazawa thought for a moment and said, "Of course, climbing trees alone is not enough. I will work hard." Hinata Hyuga's eyes lit up immediately. "If I can master the soft fist technique as soon as possible, I'm sure I can satisfy my father." Kitazawa knew what Hinata Hyuga was thinking. She and Sasuke Uchiha were the same, they both wanted their father's approval. But they face the same dilemma. There's a saying that goes, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Sasuke Uchiha has Itachi Uchiha as a comparison, and Hinata Hyuga has Niji Hyuga as a comparison. Niji Hyuga was undoubtedly a rare genius. In the original work, he mastered the 8 trigrams 64 palms and the rotation technique, which only members of the Hyuga main family could learn, through self-study. "Have you opened your eyes yet?" Kitazawa took a bite of the fried shrimp and asked. The awakening of the Sharingan in the Uchiha clan requires a certain amount of talent and emotional stimulation, but the awakening of the Sharingan in the Hyuga clan is very simple, requiring only training. In theory, every ninja in the Hyuga clan can awaken their Sharingan. However, once they awaken their Sharingan, they lose their path to advancement, unlike the Uchiha clan who have the 1 Tomo, 2 Tomo, 3 Tomo, and Mangekyo Sharingan. This is why Hyuga Niji was far inferior to Uchiha Sasuke in the later stages of his career. Although he didn't have a later version. No. Hinata Hyuga shook her head and said. Kitazawa was not surprised to hear this. In the original work, Hinata Hyuga first used the Byakugan during the Chunin exams. Although the exact time when it will open is unknown, it won't be too early. Kitazawa scooped up a mouthful of rice and chewed it slowly. He knew nothing about the Byakugan and Gentle Fist, so naturally he couldn't help Hinata Hyuga. But fortunately, he now has hope. He can obtain the Byakugan if he completes Hinata Hyuga's mission. There will be a monthly exam in April. Kitazawa thought for a moment and asked, "Do you want to get first place?" Hinata Hyuga was slightly taken aback, a look of confusion on her face. "I can give you special training." Kitazawa's new way of building courage was to give a speech to the whole school. Giving a speech undoubtedly requires courage, especially in front of so many people. After the monthly exam, there will be a speech session for outstanding students. "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." Hinata Hyuga didn't quite understand, but she didn't want to refuse Kitazawa, so she agreed. "Nothing." Kitazawa smiled, but didn't mention the speech. The time came in the afternoon. Today's practical lesson was still about throwing ninja tools, but instead of kunao, it was shuriken. Each ninja tool has its own characteristics, so it takes time to practice them again. However, it's not a challenge for the ninja geniuses. A secluded training ground at the Ninja Academy. Initially, special training was given to Sasuke Uchiha alone, but now Hinata Hyuga, Ino Yamanaka, Naruto Uzumaki, and Yakumo Kurama have also joined in. Naruto and Yakumo went for a run. Kitazawa instructed, "Ino and Sasuke, practice climbing trees." "Yes, Mr. Kitazawa." Naruto Uzumaki, displaying exceptional execution skills, turned and ran. Kurama Yakumo looked at him with envy, seeing his energetic appearance. Following Kitazawa's instructions, she began jogging on the training field. "Teacher Kitazawa?" Ino Yamanaka asked curiously, "Doesn't Hinata practice climbing trees?" "She has completed her tree climbing training," Kitazawa said with a smile. Page 26. Awesome! Yamanaka Ino couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. She had also trained herself to climb trees, so she knew how difficult it was. Sasuke Uchiha swayed and instinctively clenched his fist. He was actually a step slower than Hinata Hyuga. He, who had always been considered a genius, felt resentful. He quickly turned around and started climbing the tree. Sasuke-kun, wait for me. Yamanaka Ino followed. Hinata, let's go to that tree. Kitazawa explained, it's still tree climbing training, but you'll need to dodge the ninja tools I throw. After he finished speaking, he took out 2 wooden kunai. I understand. Hinata Hyuga nodded vigorously. Climbing a tree with interference undoubtedly increases the difficulty many times over. But her personality is both gentle and strong, she will not run away from difficulties. Hinata Hyuga released chakra from her feet and climbed up a tree. Hinata, watch out! After saying that, Kitazawa threw out a kunai. He was reminding Hinata in advance because she had just started training. Once she's fully adapted, I'll stop reminding her. Hinata Hyuga immediately dodged upon hearing this. Half an hour later, Uchiha Sasuke successfully climbed to the top of the tree. He couldn't help but exhale and a smile appeared on his face. Soon, he thought of something else and quickly jumped down. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Uchiha Sasuke arrived at an open space and couldn't wait to form hand seals. Chakra surged forth and transformed into a fireball. Uchiha Sasuke was stunned. He previously used fire release, great fireball technique, and the fireball was only slightly larger than a fist, but now it's 2.5 times larger than a basketball. If it hits an enemy, it will most likely seriously injure them. Most importantly, his fireball was already a quarter of the size of the fire release, great fireball technique that Ataki Uchiha had demonstrated. If this is the result after just 1 week of training, then will I be able to earn my father's praise after a month? The thought of Fugaku Uchiha saying, as expected of my son, made Sasuke Uchiha instinctively press his forehead, his body trembling. Finally, he could no longer hold back and burst into wild laughter. Kitazawa's lips twitched, and he looked up at the sky. Sure enough, it was a bright, sunny day. Just then, 4 lines of text suddenly appeared before his eyes. Your archenemy, Uchiha Sasuke, is smug and has issued a challenge to you. Current mission, after Sasuke Uchiha's fire release, great fireball technique surpasses Ataki Uchiha's, you then use this fire release technique to surpass him. Mission reward, fire release, great fire annihilation. Whether to accept? Hey, what are you doing? Why is your system so bad? But Kitazawa likes it. Besides, even if it's just for the reward, he'd still do it. Fire release, great fire annihilation is a fire release ninjutsu with a B rank learning difficulty. In the original work, his battle record is verifiable. During the 4th Shinobi World War, more than 20 water release ninjas, most of whom were jonin, worked together to use water release, water wall to withstand Madara Uchiha's fire release, great fire annihilation. In short, the difficulty of learning does not mean the power level, this fire release ninjutsu has a very high potential. Chapter 25 Sunny Helper gets slapped in the face. Kitazawa snapped out of his daze and noticed that Ino Yamanaka and Hinata Hyuga had paused their training. There was no way around it, Uchiha Sasuke was just laughing too loudly. They were all drawn in, their faces full of confusion. If the occasion weren't so inappropriate, they would definitely ask, Sasuke, why are you laughing? Don't worry about him. Kitazawa coughed lightly and said, you guys continue training. Uchiha Sasuke finally snapped out of his reverie. He remained silent, his smile fading, and he stood frozen in place. Because of a moment of progress, he lost control of himself, causing his aloof persona to collapse. Teacher Kitazawa. Suppressing his embarrassment, Uchiha Sasuke stepped forward and said, I'm going to proceed with the next stage of training. The enlarged fire release, great fireball technique not only increased his confidence but also his trust in Kitazawa. You and Hinata together. Kitazawa explained the training method again. I don't need to give advance warnings. Uchiha Sasuke said with a confident expression. After saying that, he attached chakra to his feet and climbed up the tree. Clearly, he is currently in a state of being helped by sunny day. Kitazawa raised an eyebrow. What's the difference between this and saying come and hit me? As a teacher, he definitely had to meet Uchiha Sasuke's demands. Kitazawa casually took out a wooden kunao and threw it at the right moment. Uchiha Sasuke heard the sound of wind breaking, a smirk appeared on his lips, and he shifted his body to the left. But the next second, he let out a whoosh. The wooden kunao struck his left arm. His ability to sense the wind and pinpoint locations was still somewhat lacking, he hadn't anticipated the speed of the kunao. Come again. Uchiha Sasuke got up, his face flushed, and said stiffly. Kitazawa didn't want to laugh, but since he hadn't received any professional training, he just laughed. I have to say, it was quite amusing to see Sunny get her comeuppance. Time passed slowly, and the practical course came to an end. Despite being bruised and battered, Uchiha Sasuke persevered. His progress was also much faster than Hinata Hyuga's. The effect of being beaten is evident. The practical lesson was the last one. After saying goodbye to Hinata and the others, Kitazawa went to the conference room on the second floor. Shoimu informed him last Thursday that there would be a meeting today to discuss the monthly exams in April. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino noticed him and waved to him. Kitazawa stepped forward, greeted him, and sat down next to him. Shoimu, who was not far away, immediately turned cold. He and Umino Irika have been good friends since childhood, although he sees it as just a fling. But Kitazawa's arrival stole his good friend, which is truly hateful. 10 minutes later, the meeting room was packed. Although there are many teachers, apart from Mizuki and Irika Umino, none of them have ever been named in the original work. Finally, a middle-aged man walked in. He is the vice principal of the Ninja Academy, named Sarutobi Hisao, and is a jonin. Hiruzen Sarutobi was the principal, but also the Hokage, so he didn't have much time. The vice principal was the actual administrator of the Ninja Academy. I am now announcing the rules for this month's monthly exam. After Sarutobi Hisao sat down, he began to speak. Kitazawa listened for a while and found that it was similar to last year. Teachers from each grade set the questions, then select the best ones, and finally each grade compiles 2 sets of test papers, one official and one as a backup. The monthly exam is scheduled for April 30th. Hisao Sarutobi said calmly, I hope you can submit the questions to me before the 20th. Yes. Everyone answered in unison. One last reminder, the more topics selected, the more likely you are to be named the best teacher of the year. Hisao Sarutobi stood up and said, meeting adjourned. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino caught up with Kitazawa and asked very sincerely, I'd like to ask if there's anything I should pay attention to when setting these questions. This was his first time serving as a test setter, so he knew absolutely nothing about it. The reason for asking Kitazawa is that he has been the teacher whose questions have been selected the most for 3 consecutive years. Irika, I can teach you. Mizuki suddenly appeared, smiling, and said, Kitazawa is quite busy, so let's not trouble him. Umino Irika paused for a moment, unsuspecting, and was about to agree when he was interrupted. Mizuki, you are a second-year teacher, while Irika is a first-year teacher. It is more appropriate for me to teach him. Kitazawa said with a smile. Thank you, Kitazawa-senpai. Irika Umino immediately expressed his gratitude. Upon hearing this, Mizuki's smile froze. Page 27. Go to my office. Kitazawa glanced at him, then turned and left. Shoimu, thank you for your help too. After Irika Umino finished speaking, he quickly followed Kitazawa. Asshole! Mizuki clenched his fists, his face contorted in pain. But aside from impotent rage, there was nothing he could do. Kitazawa returned to his office, chatted with Irika Umino for half an hour, and then went home. Tuesday has arrived. Kitazawa went to the school's archives early in the morning. He found past exam papers and brought one out with him. Teacher Kitazawa. Hinata Hyuga was punctual as always. Your task today is to complete all these test papers. Kitazawa took out 2 test papers and said. Okay. Hinata Hyuga nodded obediently. The monthly exams at the Ninja Academy consist of a theoretical exam and a practical exam. Under normal circumstances, Hinata Hyuga should have no problem getting into the top 5, but getting first place would be quite difficult. After all, there are quite a few geniuses in the class. Practical experience is hard to improve in a short time, but theoretical knowledge can. The monthly exam is a comprehensive ranking. As long as you get first place in the theoretical exam and are in the top 3 in the practical exam, you will most likely be first overall. Kitazawa's method was simple: practice coding problems. First, he had Hinata Hyuga do the past exam papers, and then he created targeted questions and predicted the questions to further strengthen her skills. As for whether it will affect his goal of getting first place in the monthly exam, Kitazawa can only describe himself with a phrase from his past life: the referees and judges are all my people, what can you do to fight me? After finishing breakfast, Hinata Hyuga started doing her homework. There is no doubt that she skipped class again, but whether she actually skipped or not is debatable. If you skip class to do a test, is that still skipping class? Hinata Hyuga is doing the problems, while Kitazawa is setting them. The questions he set were all related to the history of Konoha and the will of fire that he taught. Because this is his advantage, and also his open strategy, Hisao Sarutobi has no choice but to select him. Of course, Kitazawa didn't just randomly set questions, he came prepared, ensuring that every question would satisfy Hiruzen Sarutobi. In the afternoon, we had a practical training session. After her hard work, Ino Yamanaka completed her tree climbing training and joined Hinata Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha in their next training phase. But what surprised Kitazawa the most was Naruto Uzumaki, whose running training had improved by leaps and bounds. How is it, Kitazawa-sensei? Naruto Uzumaki chuckled and asked. That's really good, even the teacher was taken aback. Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said, your performance in the physical training the day after tomorrow will be crucial. Guaranteed to complete the mission. Naruto Uzumaki gave a thumbs up, his teeth gleaming, and said. And many more. What the hell is that move? Boo-ho. You know Matke? Kitazawa sensed something was wrong and quickly asked. Ah? How do you know? Naruto Uzumaki stared wide-eyed, astonished by the incredible foresight of Naruto. A practical lesson lasting only 45 minutes is far from enough for him. In addition, he had nothing to do after school, so he started running training. Then he met Matke. Kitazawa's lips twitched. If Naruto Uzumaki is corrupted by Might Guy, will Hiruzen Sarutobi cause him trouble? Chapter 26 Naruto's Counterattack. As long as you are happy, Kitazawa said helplessly. Naruto Uzumaki and Might Guy already know each other, so he has no reason to stop them. Besides, he didn't do anything wrong, so Hiruzen Sarutobi probably wouldn't blame him for this. As for Minato Namikaze, all I can do is wish him good luck. Hopefully, he will still recognize his son when he sees him. I'm quite happy. Naruto Uzumaki said with a big smile, Uncle Guy is very kind to me and has taught me a lot of useful knowledge. You can ask him for advice on physical skills. Kitazawa sighed upon hearing this. This child is so pitiful, he doesn't have many normal friends. Okay. Naruto Uzumaki nodded and then asked, Kitazawa-sensei, can I start tree climbing training now? Perhaps it was the mutual attraction between stand users that gave him a unique obsession with Uchiha Sasuke. In short, she didn't want to fall behind him. You can climb the tree after you get first place in physical training. Kitazawa thought for a moment and asked, you don't want to lose first place because of a moment of carelessness, do you? I understand. Naruto Uzumaki was immediately spurred on. He aims to win first place in physical training and impress everyone. I'm going for a run. Naruto Uzumaki started running around the training ground again. Kitazawa's gaze fell on Kurama Yakumo, who was not far away. She was covered in sweat, but she continued jogging. Kitazawa nodded slightly. Perhaps it's because children in the ninja world mature earlier, so they are all very determined. In his previous life, when he was 6 years old, he was still playing in the mud. Kitazawa withdrew his gaze, turned around and walked to the tree to help Uchiha Sasuke and the others train. He was already feeling a bit overwhelmed. Now, all hope rests on Naruto Uzumaki's mission. With the shadow clone technique, he could make things much easier. 2 days flew by, and soon it was Thursday's practical class. On the Ninja Academy's playground, the first-year Class A students gradually arrived. More physical training, what a hassle. Nara Shikamaru held his head in his hands, looking listless. Last time I narrowly lost to Sasuke, but this time I'm coming back to take back everything that belongs to me. Kaiba Inyazuka clenched his fist and said. These are all my lyrics. Naruto Uzumaki shouted, first place is mine. How could you possibly defeat Sasuke-kun? Sakura Haruno asked with a grin, Ino, don't you think so? Yes. Yamanaka Ino said casually. She's been busy with training lately and hasn't really competed with Sakura Haruno for Sasuke Uchiha. Sakura Haruno also noticed her perfunctory attitude. Uchiha Sasuke nodded slightly upon hearing this. That's definitely what he thinks. To put it bluntly, everyone present except Kitazawa was destined to be his defeated opponent. This time is different. Mr. Kitazawa has shared his running secrets with me. Naruto Uzumaki said smugly. Little Sasuke, easily defeated. Just because Kitazawa-sensei is great doesn't mean you are. Uchiha Sasuke said calmly. He knew that Naruto Uzumaki had accepted Kitazawa's running training, but a week wouldn't be enough to see any results. After all, judging from the last time, there was a difference of 8 places between them. Wait and see. Naruto Uzumaki retorted defiantly, I'll make you kneel down. Hey! I'm clearly in 2nd place. Kaiba Inyazuka couldn't help but remind them, don't ignore me. Teacher Kitazawa is here. Yamanaka Ino suddenly perked up and said. Stand in order and run 50 laps first. Kitazawa stood on the runway and got straight to the point. Page 28. He quickly felt a very obvious gaze upon him. Needless to say, he knew it was Uchiha Sasuke. Ready. Run. Kitazawa raised his voice and said. A group of people rushed out in an orderly fashion, but unlike last time, Naruto Uzumaki did not sprint out immediately. Uchiha Sasuke glanced at him. Although he didn't think Naruto Uzumaki could surpass him, the thought of Kitazawa made him feel he should take him seriously to avoid a mishap. Kitazawa's breathing was steady, and he ran in the lead. He doesn't look fast, but in reality, no one can catch up with him. He had no idea what Uchiha Sasuke was thinking. If he had, he would have told him that once a numerical monster masters the techniques, it becomes invincible. Just like last time, after 50 laps, most of the students couldn't keep going. After another 10 laps, only Uchiha Sasuke, Uzumaki Naruto, Inyazuka Kaiba, Abarame Shino, and Hyuga Hinata remained. How is this going? Sakura Haruno sat on the ground, looking puzzled, and asked, why is Naruto still here? By this time last time, Naruto Uzumaki would have been unable to get up again. As expected of Kitazawa-sensei. Yamanaka Ino took a breath and said. Are running tips really that useful? Koji Akimichi asked in surprise. Running secrets are one aspect, but the key is Naruto's own strength. Nara Shikamaru saw through the truth at a glance. Last time, it was Naruto's reckless sprinting that caused his stamina problems. Time passed slowly, and the lap count reached the 70th lap. Sasuke Uchiha was out of breath and felt the heaviness in his body. He looked at Kitazawa, who was running ahead, and couldn't help but grit his teeth. No matter how hard you try, you can't catch up. Forget it, Kitazawa is the teacher, he has more than 10 years of experience, it's normal that he can't beat him, he just needs to win first place. Wait. Uchiha Sasuke suddenly heard breathing behind him. The last time he ran 70 laps, everyone except him had already been eliminated. Sasuke Uchiha turned his head and saw that Naruto Uzumaki was also there. Something's not right. Something's wrong with 9 out of 10 points. What's going on? How has he managed to hold on until now? Even Kaiba Inyazuka and Shino Aberame have already chosen to give up, so why is the guy who was 9th last time still running? Moreover, he seemed much more relaxed than I was. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Where did things go wrong? Just then, Naruto Uzumaki noticed Sasuke Uchiha's absent-mindedness. Great opportunity. Time to seize it. Naruto suddenly burst forth and surpassed him. Sasuke Uchiha's breathing became completely disordered, his steps faltered, and his reactions sluggish. He watched helplessly as Naruto Uzumaki walked further and further away. Uchiha Sasuke had already reached his limit, and now that he couldn't catch up, he was no longer able to catch up. Ha ha ha! I'm number 1! Naruto clenched his fist and exclaimed excitedly, this is youth. Upon hearing this, Kitazawa pressed his forehead. Broke in. Another young man. Current task, help Naruto Uzumaki achieve 2nd place in physical training. Quest reward, Shadow Clone Technique. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then changed his expression without picking at his bean. Well done, Naruto. Chapter 27 An Encounter with a Numerical Monster. Uchiha Sasuke plopped down on the ground, his cat-like face falling. In less than 2 weeks, he lost 1st place in physical training. His sole purpose in enrolling was to emulate Itachi Uchiha, dominate the Ninja Academy within a year, and then graduate. But it's already over before it even started. Sasuke, how are you? A hand was extended in front of him, and then Naruto Uzumaki's sincere face came into view. How about what? Sasuke Uchiha hardened his face and said, you were just lucky this time. Don't even think about beating me next time. Sasuke-kun is right. Sakura Haruno's voice rang out. She stepped forward quickly and reached out her hand, afraid that Sasuke Uchiha would grab Naruto Uzumaki's hand. I won't lose either. Naruto Uzumaki said confidently, I have running secrets that Kitazawa-sensei gave me. Running secrets? Suddenly, Sasuke Uchiha had a thought and immediately got up and walked towards Kitazawa. Sakura Haruno froze on the spot. She clenched her fists awkwardly, revealing a gritted teeth expression. Uzumaki Naruto scratched his head. He didn't understand why Sakura Haruno was so angry. But he quickly put that aside and found Kaiba and the others. I got 1st place. Naruto Uzumaki said happily. Who asked you? Kaiba Inyazuka glared at him and said. Congratulations, Naruto. Nara Shikamaru smiled and offered his blessings. You're better than me. Koji Akimichi handed over a bag of potato chips and asked, want some? Thank you. A warm feeling washed over Naruto. He is no longer alone, he now has many friends. Teacher Kitazawa. Sasuke Uchiha took a deep breath and asked, what's the running secret Naruto mentioned? Why didn't you ask Naruto just now? Kitazawa asked a question he already knew the answer to. I don't want to ask him. Uchiha Sasuke gave a light snort and said. There are no running secrets, I just taught Naruto the correct running method. Kitazawa said with a smile, and you've already mastered these running methods. I do not believe. Sasuke Uchiha instinctively denied it. If you don't believe me, you can ask Naruto. Kitazawa was not surprised by his reaction at all. Uchiha Sasuke fell silent. If the running methods are the same, then his stats are not as good as Naruto's. How could this be? For a moment, he couldn't accept it. Sasuke Uchiha gritted his teeth, turned around, and stood in front of Naruto Uzumaki. With a cold expression, he said, "Come with me, I have some questions for you." "What is the problem?" Naruto followed him to a spot a short distance away, looking puzzled. "What running secrets did Mr. Kitazawa teach you?" Uchiha Sasuke asked directly. "You want to learn this?" Naruto Uzumaki immediately became excited. Long-winded. Sasuke Uchiha turned his head away from him and urged, "Speak quickly." "Hehe, no problem." Naruto Uzumaki wasn't angry, on the contrary, he was quite pleased and repeated it. In his view, it was incredibly prestigious for Uchiha Sasuke, the best student in the class, to come to him for advice. Besides, there is another reason. That is, Sasuke Uchiha did not treat him differently because of the so-called monster label. That's it. Sasuke Uchiha's eyes widened upon hearing this. "Correct?" Naruto asked, puzzled, "Isn't this enough?" Uchiha Sasuke confirmed that Kitazawa was not lying. Page 29. That's why he felt even more uncomfortable. Why is Naruto Uzumaki's physical ability stronger than his? He's the invincible Uchiha. After thinking for a long time, Sasuke Uchiha finally swallowed his pride and went to Kitazawa again. The answer to that question is simple. Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and said, "Because your Uchiha clan is skilled in Sharingan and fire release ninjutsu." But Uchiha Sasuke hesitated, as if he wanted to say something but then stopped. "Naruto's talent is no less than yours, it's just that his talent is different from yours," Kitazawa said with a smile. This wasn't meant to deceive Uchiha Sasuke. It's made very clear in the original work. Naruto Uzumaki inherited the physical talents of the Sage of Six Paths, while Sasuke Uchiha inherited the mental talents of the Sage of Six Paths. Simply put, one is Yang Escape and the other is Yin Escape. What talent does he have? Uchiha Sasuke curled his lip. Based on current performance, apart from physical training, everything else is mediocre. Kitazawa couldn't help but smile. That's the magic of numbers. I encountered a numerical monster, and despite using all my skills, I couldn't defeat it. You'll understand later. Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said. Sasuke Uchiha glanced at Naruto Uzumaki subconsciously, then frowned. He didn't believe Kitazawa's words at all, but for some reason, he had a feeling that such a thing could really happen. After a short break, everyone continued their lessons. After Kitazawa taught them ninja tool throwing techniques, he let them practice freely while he led Hinata Hyuga and the others to the training ground. "Teacher Kitazawa," Naruto asked expectantly, "can I start tree climbing training now?" "Can." Kitazawa nodded and said. He had promised Naruto that if he came in first place in physical training, he would teach him how to climb trees. "Great!" Naruto Uzumaki happily jumped up and down twice. "It's just climbing trees, you're still a long way off." Uchiha Sasuke couldn't help but say. "I'll catch up with you soon," Naruto Uzumaki said confidently. Just as Uchiha Sasuke was about to retaliate, he saw three Kitazawa. "What ninjutsu is this?" Naruto Uzumaki asked in surprise. "The art of shadow clone." The three Kitazawas answered in unison. "I want to learn." Naruto's eyes lit up, and he said. His first thought was that after learning this ninjutsu, he could play by himself when he got home. "I'll teach you after you've finished your tree climbing training." Kitazawa casually drew a big pie in the sky. "Okay." Naruto Uzumaki nodded vigorously. "Begin training." Kitazawa assigned tasks to his shadow clones. One shadow clone taught Naruto Uzumaki, and another shadow clone taught Yakumo Kurama. His true form is to teach Uchiha Sasuke, Hyuga Hinata, and Yamanaka Ino. Naruto Uzumaki, full of fighting spirit, started climbing the tree, but the results were quite poor. Kitazawa seemed to be deep in thought. Does Naruto Uzumaki have talent? Of course he does, otherwise he wouldn't have become the savior. However, he was a complete failure at the Ninja Academy, unable to even master the basic three body techniques, which led to him failing his graduation exam. One reason is that he didn't take the Ninja Academy seriously and did poorly in his studies. Secondly, it's because of the great treasure inside him, the nine-tailed fox. Kitazawa rubbed his temples. Given his current strength and status, he wouldn't dare touch the nine tails at all. The only solution now is to make up for shortcomings with diligence. Although Naruto's progress is relatively slow, he is still making progress. Sasuke Uchiha was completely baffled. Naruto trained for half a lesson, but he only climbed to about 1/5 the height of a tree. You should know that the first time he climbed a tree, he only made it halfway up. Uchiha Sasuke couldn't help but question the meaning of life. How could he lose to someone like Naruto Uzumaki? The class ended quickly. Naruto Uzumaki reluctantly left the school and returned home. Naruto, congratulations on winning first place in physical training. Hiruzen Sarutobi said with a chuckle. Thank you. Naruto Uzumaki smiled broadly and asked again, Third Hokage, how did you know? I am the Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi said smugly, nothing can be hidden from me. Awesome! Naruto exclaimed in surprise, then eagerly added, I want to hear the story of the fourth Hokage. Chapter 28 The Unofficial History of Uchiha Madara. Friday. Kitazawa's office. Hinata Hyuga glanced at Yakumo Kurama, feeling somewhat relieved. Because another member has joined the ranks of those skipping class. She thought that skipping half a day of class made her invincible at the Ninja Academy, but Kurama Yakumo was even more daring, skipping a whole day of class and only attending practical combat classes. Hinata, are you having some kind of problem? Kitazawa looked up, noticed her movement, and asked. No. No. Hinata Hyuga blushed and quickly shook her head. She was distracted for a moment and didn't expect to be caught by Kitazawa. Hinata Hyuga felt both shy and embarrassed. She instinctively tensed her legs, and her snow-white toes unconsciously clenched. Ask me if you have any questions. Kitazawa glanced at it and said with a smile. Most female ninjas in the ninja world wear long boots or sandals that expose their toes, so her movements did not escape his eyes. Ah! Hinata Hyuga secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Kitazawa's gaze fell on Kurama Yakumo, who was not far away. Hinata Hyuga is practicing her exam questions, preparing to win first place in the theory exam at the end of the month. Kurama Yakumo, on the other hand, was learning yin release techniques to lay the foundation for becoming a psychological medical ninja. Kitazawa withdrew his gaze and continued to set questions for the monthly exam. By the afternoon, he had successfully completed all 30 questions. Please, other me. Kitazawa handed the question to his shadow clone, who then passed it on to Vice Principal Sarutobi Hisao. He strolled leisurely onto the playground. Teacher Kitazawa, what are we teaching today? Naruto Uzumaki leaned forward and asked with great interest. Clone technique. Kitazawa replied. Wow! Naruto Uzumaki quickly asked, is it the ninjutsu that Kitazawa-sensei used yesterday? Humph, are you an idiot? Sasuke Uchiha suddenly spoke up, that's the shadow clone technique, not the clone technique. Sakura Haruno immediately noticed the problem. Why would Sasuke Uchiha, who is usually extremely aloof, suddenly start chatting with Naruto Uzumaki? Is that right? She doesn't even get that kind of treatment. Sakura Haruno looked at the blonde hair and felt resentful. The shadow clone technique is one of the 3 body techniques. It can create clones to confuse the enemy, but it does not have a physical form like the shadow clone technique. Page 30. Kitazawa briefly explained the difference between the 2 ninjutsu. I see. Naruto scratched his head and said. The 3 body techniques are a required part of the graduation exam, and everyone must master them. Kitazawa walked up to the crowd and said, "Watch closely, I'll demonstrate once." Bang! 2 Kitazawas appeared from within the smoke. Did you remember the sequence of the hand seals I just performed? Kitazawa dispersed his clones and asked. Remember. Everyone answered in unison. Start practicing. Kitazawa nodded slightly and said, I will point out any problems. As soon as he finished speaking, Sasuke Uchiha formed hand seals and created 2 identical clones. Sasuke-kun. Upon seeing this, Sakura Haruno immediately transformed into a cheerleader. I can too. Not to be outdone, Naruto Uzumaki formed hand seals. After a puff of smoke, 2 clones appeared. But one clone, resembling a strange creature, lay sprawled on the ground. Another clone, Abba, seemed to be mentally challenged. After a couple of seconds of stunned silence, everyone burst into laughter, and the air was filled with a joyful atmosphere. Uchiha Sasuke twitched the corner of his mouth. That's so embarrassing, you should quit the class. He had thought yesterday that Naruto Uzumaki would be his opponent. Kitazawa couldn't help but smile. This scene is practically a replica of the original. Thinking about it carefully, only Naruto's transformation technique is passable among his 3 body techniques. No, to be more accurate, it's outrageous. His seduction technique was so powerful that even Kagaya Otsutsuki was forced into a state of control. Alright, let's continue practicing. Kitazawa clapped his hands and said. He glanced around and saw that, apart from Uchiha Sasuke who succeeded on his first try, there were also Hyuga Hinata, Abarame Shino, and Nara Shikamaru. Ino Yamanaka, Sakura Haruno, and Kaiba Inyazuka were a little slower, but they mastered the material in just one lesson. Naruto Uzumaki, however, made little progress. That concludes today's practical lesson. As the bell rang, Kitazawa spoke on time, see you next week. Goodbye teacher. After everyone greeted him, they galloped out of the school like wild horses. After all, tomorrow and the day after are holidays, a time for their happy celebrations. Teacher Kitazawa. Naruto asked sullenly, do I lack ninjutsu talent? No. Kitazawa shook his head and said, you just haven't found the right ninjutsu for you yet. What kind of ninjutsu would suit me? Naruto's spirits lifted, and he asked. You do this. Kitazawa thought for a moment and said, wait for me at the school's training ground at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll teach you a new ninjutsu then. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Naruto Uzumaki said gratefully. It's nothing, just something I did. Kitazawa doesn't mind getting along well with Naruto Uzumaki. By referring to the treatment of Irika Umino in the original work, we can see that a Chunin ended up becoming the principal of the Ninja Academy. As long as Kitazawa has no designs on Kurama, the deeper his bond with Naruto Uzumaki, the safer he will be in Konoha. The time came the next day. After having breakfast, Kitazawa went to the ninja school as agreed. Teacher Kitazawa. Naruto Uzumaki had been waiting for a while, and greeted him immediately upon seeing him. The ninjutsu I'm going to teach you is called the transformation technique. Let me demonstrate it for you. Kitazawa didn't waste any words and got straight to the point, forming a hand seal. His body and appearance changed instantly. So amazing! Looking at Kitazawa transformed into himself, Naruto Uzumaki suddenly felt like he was looking in a mirror. You try. Kitazawa deactivated the transformation technique. Okay. Naruto Uzumaki quickly formed hand seals. But soon, a horrifying scene appeared. His head became Kitazawa's, but his body remained his own. continue. Kitazawa's lips twitched as he spoke. 3 hours later, Naruto Uzumaki stopped, panting heavily. Give. Kitazawa handed him a bottle of water and said, let's rest for a while. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Naruto Uzumaki plopped down on the ground and started gulping down water. Kitazawa casually sat down opposite him. Teacher Kitazawa, in what situations is this transformation technique mainly used? Naruto scratched his head and said, I feel that the shadow clone technique is more useful. No. Kitazawa suddenly thought of something and said, the transformation technique can save your life in a critical moment. Save your life? Naruto Uzumaki looked at him with a puzzled expression. Do you remember the story I told you about Madara Uchiha? Kitazawa spouted nonsense with a straight face. According to unofficial historical records, Uchiha Madara once used the transformation technique to transform into a beautiful woman, successfully deceiving Senju Hashirama and thus saving his life. What? Naruto Uzumaki's eyes widened, and he asked curiously, is there really such a thing? I cannot guarantee whether it is true or false. Kitazawa said with a smile, but if the transformation technique is used properly, it does have that effect. Is that so? Naruto Uzumaki fell into deep thought. Just as Kitazawa was about to speak, 4 lines of text suddenly appeared before his eyes. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. Current mission, learn the unique ninjutsu of your lifelong rival, Naruto Uzumaki, Sexy Jutsu. Mission reward, 1/10 of a card's maximum chakra. Whether to accept? Kitazawa was taken aback. 1/10 of Kakashi Hataki's chakra? Brilliant! Hey everyone, please vote for me and let me continue reading. Chapter 29 Who is the most beautiful in Konoha? Although it's often said that Kakashi Hatake is physically weak, as an elite among Jonin, he actually possesses a considerable amount of chakra. Even 1/10 of his chakra is more than that of an average Chunin. Most importantly, once there's 1, there will be 2, there will definitely be similar reward tasks in the future. With infinite stacking, surpassing Hashirama Senju and Naruto Uzumaki is not a dream. However, this task is not easy. The sexy jutsu isn't difficult, but the difficulty lies in the fact that Naruto Uzumaki hasn't created a sexy jutsu yet, and he hasn't even mastered the transformation jutsu. What are your thoughts after hearing this story? Kitazawa looked at Naruto Uzumaki, who was deep in thought, and asked. If I encounter an enemy in the future, I can use the transformation technique to transform into a beautiful woman, which will definitely give me the upper hand. Naruto Uzumaki said with great confidence. As expected of you. Kitazawa praised. In a sense, Naruto Uzumaki in the original work is the kind of shameless character. Whether it's creating a seductive technique, wearing a green bodysuit, or using the 1,000 years of death, he can do it all. Hehe, it's all thanks to the teacher. Naruto scratched his head and asked curiously, Kitazawa-sensei, are there any other unofficial histories about Uchiha Madara? We'll talk about unofficial history another time. Kitazawa coughed lightly and said, don't forget our purpose today. Yes, I must learn the transformation technique today. Naruto Uzumaki stood up, fully recharged, and said, I'll continue practicing. This young man is truly enviable. Page 31. Looking at his energetic appearance, Kitazawa couldn't help but sigh that being a Jinchuriki wasn't so bad after all, given his strong recovery ability. The premise is that you don't encounter a Hokage with a screw loose. In comparison, Kushina Uzumaki was much luckier than Naruto Uzumaki. Saturdays and Sundays fly by. After much effort, Naruto Uzumaki finally succeeded in performing a transformation jutsu. Although it took 2 days, which was slower than Uchiha Sasuke and the others, it was still faster than most of their peers. After all, it usually takes 6 years for a student to master the 3 bodies technique. Ha ha ha! Naruto Uzumaki, in his excessive excitement, began to imitate Sasuke Uchiha. It's no wonder he was so happy, because the transformation technique was the first ninjutsu he had ever mastered. This tastes wrong. Kitazawa looked at Naruto Uzumaki, who was laughing wildly, and shook his head. Teacher Kitazawa. After laughing enough, Naruto asked, "Do you know who the most beautiful female ninja in Konoha is?" Kitazawa immediately thought of Tsunade, who would never let her child go hungry. After all, many people believe that big is beautiful. Moreover, Tsunade is beautiful, and her beauty lasts a long time. What do you ask for this? Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and asked. I want to use her as the object of my transformation technique. Naruto Uzumaki explained seriously, only the most beautiful female ninja can confuse the enemy. Your idea is indeed correct, but only half correct. Kitazawa shook his head and said, because it's not enough to just be pretty, it also has to be breathtaking. Isn't beauty about being able to create a stunning impression? Naruto asked, puzzled. You don't understand men. Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said, men like more than just good looks, they like good looks plus color. While a beautiful woman dressed in clothes is certainly eye-catching, a beautiful woman without clothes is more than just eye-catching. In the original work, Naruto Uzumaki's sexy jutsu is the latter. I don't understand. Naruto Uzumaki pondered for a moment and then shook his head. Kitazawa frowned slightly. This stumped him, because he couldn't possibly take Naruto Uzumaki to some brothel. Although in the ninja world, these places of pleasure are considered legitimate industries. You can find out by referring to Jiraiya. In the original work, he is often depicted with fine wine and beautiful women. Kitazawa didn't believe that Jiraiya, like Ponga, couldn't handle this deep water. A normal man would be perfectly at ease, and would be taught those fighting techniques every day. But Naruto Uzumaki is different, he's just a child. Kitazawa didn't want to be expelled the next day for stepping into the school gate with his left foot. Getting expelled is just good luck, there might be other forms of torture involved. There's no rush. You should master the transformation technique first. Kitazawa chose to believe that those who came after him possessed wisdom. After all, in the original work, Naruto Uzumaki created the sexy jutsu without any formal instruction. New week. After having breakfast, Kitazawa went straight to the ninja school's conference room. He arrived rather late, the meeting room was already more than half full. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino's voice rang out. Kitazawa subconsciously looked over and saw him and Mizuki. Kitazawa. As he approached, Shui Mu smiled and asked, how many questions do you think you'll get selected this time? Do not know. Kitazawa shook his head and said, it depends on luck. There's no luck involved. It's all about skill. Irika Umino said admiringly, for the first 3 years, Kitazawa-senpai, you had the most questions, a full 10. The Ninja Academy's exam papers were similar to those in my previous life, including multiple choice, fill in the blank, and subjective questions. All in all, there are only 50 questions. Kitazawa alone occupied 1/5 of the space. Shuimu, you too, you're very strong. Umino Irika added, last year, I was selected for 9 questions, and I almost surpassed Kitazawa-senpai. Shui Mu subconsciously clenched his fist. Why are you bringing up something that is not related to the topic? I'm not cut out for it, participation is what matters. Irika Umino took a deep breath nervously and said, I would be very satisfied if I could be chosen as a question. As far as I know, the Hokage personally selects the topics every year. Mizuki glanced at Kitazawa, who had a calm expression, and said, the Hokage might have changed his criteria for choosing topics this year. He's actually a candidate for Hokage. Irika Umino looked worried and asked, what if the question I asked displeases the Hokage? Don't worry, the Hokage is always tolerant and won't hold it against you. Shuimu smiled and said, as if to say, I know this very well. Just then, Vice Principal Hisao Sarutobi walked in. Everyone immediately stopped talking and looked at him. I will now announce the number of topics selected for each of you. Sarutobi Hisao wasted no time and read out, Kitazawa, 30 questions. What? The meeting room immediately erupted into chaos. The reason is simple. Each teacher submits 30 questions, and according to unspoken rules, they usually don't submit more than 15. After all, we have to consider everyone's feelings. Duo Shao? Isn't there some mistake here? Mizuki's smile froze, she sensed disbelief. Yes. Irika Umino's pupils contracted, and he subconsciously agreed. He had no complaints about Kitazawa, on the contrary, he admired him greatly. But no matter how much I admire them, it's really an exaggeration that they were all selected. This was chosen by the Hokage, so there can be no mistake. Sarutobi Hisao said in a deep voice. In fact, when he first saw it, he also felt that something was wrong. But he dared not question Hiruzen Sarutobi, even if he was wrong, he could only accept it. Kitazawa raised an eyebrow, a look of surprise on his face. Wow, Golden Legend! That old geezer isn't even going to act anymore, he's just using his privileges. What? I'm the one receiving this privilege? Oh well, Hokage is wise. Clearly, this was Hiruzen Sarutobi's way of repaying him, primarily because of the care he had shown Naruto Uzumaki during this time. Mizuki, 5 questions. Irika Umino, 1 question. Sarutobi Hisao continued reciting. Because Kitazawa alone took up 30 questions, the number of questions for the others was drastically reduced. After reading the text, Hisao Sarutobi left the meeting room. Kitazawa didn't stay long either. Since his class was the first one, I followed him and headed to the classroom. Hateful. Mizuki finally couldn't hold back and put on the mask of pain. I lost the year before last, I lost the year before that, I lost again last year, and I'm losing again this year. If I keep losing, I'll lose all face. Shoemu, it's okay, second place is also amazing. Seeing his distorted expression, Domino Irika quickly comforted him. Shuemu couldn't hold back any longer. What's the difference between this sentence and small is also cute? Chapter 30 Even rolling your eyes is so beautiful. After finishing his class, Kitazawa returned to his office. Hinata Hyuga and Yakumo Kurama were with him, they had gotten used to skipping classes. Yakumo. After Kitazawa sat down, he asked, how's your reading going? I have already finished reading 3 books. Kurama Yakumo replied. Perhaps it was the powerful mental strength brought by her bloodline limit that gave her such a good memory from childhood to adulthood. Ah! Page 32. Kitazawa seemed to be deep in thought. At this rate, we'll soon be able to try and create what's called psychological medical ninjutsu. Of course, it's called medical ninjutsu, but it's not yang release, it's yin release. Kitazawa thought for a moment and decided to go and have a talk with Kurane Ui. After all, he wasn't good at using yin escape. But he also has his own advantages, he is not limited by traditional ninja thinking. I'm going out. After finishing his business, Kitazawa got up and left the school. A dozen minutes later, he arrived at Kurane's house. Kitazawa raised his hand and knocked on the door. Soon, the door was opened. A pair of long, slender, white legs appeared first, followed by a slim waist and a top that concealed a treasure. Kitazawa? You didn't have class today? Kurane asked with a curious look on her face. I only have 1 class this morning, and I happen to have some free time now, so I came to talk to you about Yakumo. Kitazawa replied. Is that so? Then come in and we'll talk. Kurane stepped back, making way for him. Ah! Kitazawa nodded slightly. Kurane closed the door and went into the living room. She plopped down on the sofa, crossed her legs, and crossed her feet, looking completely relaxed. Kitazawa sat opposite her, and could see her fair and delicate solace at a glance. "What is it?" Kurane asked first. "Yakumo learns theoretical knowledge very quickly, so we can consider learning and creating ninjutsu." Kitazawa countered, "Where do you think we should start by attacking her ninjutsu?" "Illusion," Kurane Ui said without hesitation. "I think so too." Kitazawa changed the subject, saying, "But none of the existing illusions are suitable for her." "Ah!" Kurane crossed her arms and began to ponder. Kitazawa previously mentioned two types of illusion techniques that Yakumo Kurama could use. The first type is illusion that attacks the mind directly without using the five senses. The second type is psychological healing techniques that target negative emotions. "What are your thoughts on creating ninjutsu?" Kurane rubbed her temples and asked. She was not a ninja with creative abilities like Minato Namikaze. Throughout the original work, all the illusions she used were derived from Shinko Ui. The fact that she was suddenly asked to create new illusion magic was giving her a real headache. As a ninja of mental health, the first thing should be to gain the patient's trust, because mental illnesses are often difficult to talk about. Kitazawa thought for a moment and said, "Good." Kurane agreed and asked, "Then how do we gain their trust?" "To create a comfortable environment for patients." Kitazawa said calmly, "Use Yakumo's painting." Yakumo Kurama's bloodline limit allows the content in the painting to become a real world. Because it's so real, it's hard to realize you've been under an illusion. In the original work, even Kurane Ui, who was proficient in illusion magic, could not escape the world within her paintings. People are more likely to open up when they are in a comfortable environment. Kitazawa paused, then added, "Of course, we can also use sound illusions to make patients even more unguarded. Most illusions work on vision, that is, the eyes. Sound illusions are extremely rare. Because they are few, they are not subject to special precautions. If the patient still refuses to talk, then there is only one option left: consultation in a dream." Kitazawa explained, after the patient fell into a deep sleep, Yakumo entered his dream with his powerful spiritual energy. No one cares about the stories that happen in dreams. Yakumo Kurama can transform into anyone and enter dreams to spy. A very novel idea. Kurane Ui pondered for a moment and said, "Your 3 sentences represent 3 research directions." The idea was actually very simple, but she couldn't think of it. Because in her mind, illusion or ninjutsu is a killing technique. Whether it works out or not depends on you. Kitazawa smiled and said, "Although it's difficult, I can give it a try." Kurane Ui smiled slightly and said confidently, "I do know a little about illusion magic." "You're being modest. Apart from the Uchiha clan, you're the most skilled genjutsu ninja in Konoha." Kitazawa shook his head and said, "You don't need to remind me." Upon hearing this, Kurane Ui pursed her lips and said, "That damned Uchiha, he ruined her dream of genjutsu." When she was young and ambitious, she thought she could surpass the Uchiha in genjutsu, but later she realized that it was simply impossible. Even without having learned genjutsu, Uchiha ninjas who awaken the 3 Tomo Sharingan are top-tier genjutsu ninjas. They're skipping the market altogether. To express my apology, I'll treat you to lunch." Kitazawa immediately said. "Since we're already at my house, you don't need to spend any money. I'll cook." Kurane glared at him and said, "Even rolling your eyes looks good." Kitazawa said with a smile, "I would call you the most beautiful woman in Konoha." Grumpy. Kurane Ui remained silent. She stood up and said, "Come on, come upstairs with me." "No, Sister Hong." Kitazawa followed behind her. Kurane walked barefoot on the floor, making a soft sound. With each step she took, Kitazawa could see her plump buttocks, swaying in a fleshy curve. "We're here, come in." Kurane Ui pushed open the door and entered the room. Kitazawa looked around and found that it was a study. "The bookshelf is full of my family's magic tricks passed down through generations. You can look through them. Kurane sat down at her desk and said casually. Am I an outsider? Is it inappropriate for me to do this? Kitazawa blinked and asked. Kurane Yui was taken aback. She was so focused on the convenience of exploring new illusions in the study that she forgot about this point. Since I have already agreed, no one has anything to say. Kurane thought for a moment and then said. But after saying it, I felt a little uneasy. Alright, let's start with the simplest sound illusion and try to create a low-level illusion. Kurane suppressed the strange feeling in her heart and said. Okay. Kitazawa naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, this is a rare opportunity to experience illusion magic. Although he didn't learn it, he had another reason to explain why the system rewarded him with illusion magic. It was time for the afternoon's practical class. I have something to tell you before class begins. Kitazawa stood in front of the students in Class 1A and said, the first all-grade exam of this semester will be held on April 30th. Will the entire grade be ranked? Naruto Uzumaki immediately grasped the key point. Meeting. Kitazawa nodded and said. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Sasuke narrowed his eyes. He wants to be number 1 in the class and number 1 in the whole grade. Very good. Naruto Uzumaki exclaimed excitedly, let's march towards the throne of number 1 in the entire grade. It doesn't matter, I'll take care of it. Kaiba Inyazuka, hands in his pockets, said confidently. Hinata Hyuga took a deep breath. She has received so much special training from Kitazawa, it's time to repay his kindness, she must win first place. Page 33. Chapter 31 Sasuke, I can do it again. April 28th. There is 1 day left until the first monthly exam for Class A of Grade 1. The ability to create clones is a required item in the practical exam. I've covered most of the key points in the 2 weeks I've spent on it. Kitazawa stood on the Ninja Academy's playground and said gently, today is the last class before the monthly exam, so make the most of your time. Teacher Kitazawa, don't worry, we definitely won't let you down. Kaiba Inyazuka immediately shouted. As the homeroom teacher of Class A in the first year, Kitazawa's students' grades can be said to determine his future and prospects. After a month of teaching, they all genuinely admired him and were willing to help him get promoted. Yes. Everyone agreed. First place definitely belongs to us. Naruto Uzumaki shouted with extra fervor. Naruto, you should master the shadow clone technique first. Kaiba Inyazuka shook his head and said. Who says I haven't mastered it? Naruto Uzumaki retorted, unconvinced. He and Kaiba Inyazuka have very similar personalities, perhaps due to the repulsion between like-minded people, which leads to their constant arguments. However, children often get along better when they argue. Kitazawa subconsciously looked at Naruto Uzumaki. After 2 weeks of study, he has completely mastered the transformation technique. However, the ability to create clones is like Schrödinger's cat, just like Duanyu's 6 Meridian Divine Sword, it works sometimes and doesn't work at all. Have you really learned it? Believe first. Kitazawa watched as Naruto Uzumaki formed hand seals and used the shadow clone technique. Bang! 2 identical Naruto Uzumaki figures appeared from within the smoke. Good news, there are no unusual species. Bad news, malnutrition. The 2 Naruto Uzumakis looked pale and thin, as if they hadn't eaten for months. Upon seeing this, Naruto Uzumaki made the same expression as Little Yellow Bean sweating. Why did it fail when it should have succeeded? I succeeded twice yesterday. Wait. I'll try again. Naruto Uzumaki shouted immediately. If it works, it works, if it doesn't, it doesn't. What's the point of trying again? Kaiba Inyazuka crossed his arms, gave a soft snort, and said, looks like your chances of getting first place are over. The last time. After speaking, Naruto once again formed hand seals. The 2 clones reappeared, and they were much more normal than the previous 2 clones. It's done. Naruto Uzumaki immediately smiled. That's right, Naruto has made great progress, everyone should learn from him. Kitazawa clapped his hands and said, all right, let's hurry up and start practicing. Compared to Naruto Uzumaki in the original work, he has now undergone a super evolution and no longer looks like he used to. Teacher Kitazawa. Naruto Uzumaki ran up to Kitazawa and asked, is there a transformation technique component in the practical exam? No. Kitazawa shook his head and said, the transformation technique will be taught next year. What? Naruto Uzumaki paused for a moment, then asked, why did Kitazawa-sensei teach me the transformation jutsu beforehand? Didn't I tell you? I think the transformation technique suits you better. Kitazawa chuckled and said, in fact, that's exactly the case. It's the teacher's good teaching. Naruto Uzumaki said, somewhat proudly but also modestly. Put the transformation technique aside for now, your most important task is to master the clone technique. Kitazawa glanced around and noticed that Uchiha Sasuke and Hyuga Hinata were walking towards their usual training ground. However, Yakumo Kurama wasn't there. Today, Kurane Yui dragged her off to learn sound illusion magic. Yes. Naruto Uzumaki nodded emphatically and asked again, Kitazawa-sensei, do you think I still have a chance? What chance? Kitazawa was slightly taken aback. What? You want to invite me to go hiking? It's a chance to be number one. Naruto scratched his head, a rare look of insecurity on his face. He's always stubborn in front of outsiders, but when it comes to Kitazawa, he's very honest. The outcome is still uncertain, and we are both number one. Kitazawa thought for a moment and then said. Although in his opinion, Naruto Uzumaki had little chance, he was pretty much doomed. What do you mean? Naruto Uzumaki looked up at him, his eyes clear yet foolish. It means that anything is possible until the results are in. Kitazawa explained. Great. Naruto's spirits lifted, and he regained his confidence. I'm going to practice the shadow clone technique right now. Kitazawa couldn't help but smile. This kid is, in a sense, completely impervious to reason and incredibly persistent. No wonder he was able to master the art of persuasion without a teacher when he grew up. Kitazawa watched for a while, then headed towards the training ground. Before they even got close, they heard Uchiha Sasuke's maniacal laughter. His expression immediately turned strange. What happened? Kitazawa continued walking forward and smelled a burnt smell. His gaze fell on the ground in front of Uchiha Sasuke. Without a doubt, he had just used fire release, great fireball technique. Moreover, judging from the extent of the charring, it must have been a fireball at least 2 or 3 meters long. This is not surprising. Kitazawa understood why Uchiha Sasuke was so happy. Because such a large fireball has reached the average level of fire release, great fireball technique. However, it's still far inferior to the fire release, great fireball technique used by Itachi Uchiha in the original work. Kitazawa seemed to be deep in thought. Itachi Uchiha would definitely not use his full strength in front of his beloved younger brother. Therefore, Sasuke Uchiha is now experiencing the biggest delusion of his life, that he has caught up with his brother. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Sasuke Uchiha stopped laughing, walked up to Kitazawa, and said. He actually said thank you? Kitazawa paused for a moment, then said, no need to thank me, it's all thanks to your hard work and sweat. Kitazawa-sensei. Uchiha Sasuke suddenly became a little embarrassed and asked, can I go home now? Can. Kitazawa understood and said with a smile, you've almost mastered the advanced tree climbing training, so we can stop here. Has it ended? No, this is a new beginning. This level of fire release, great fireball technique is far from reaching Itachi Uchiha's level. In short, Sasuke Uchiha will return. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. After saying that, Uchiha Sasuke turned and ran away. He couldn't wait to hear his father praise him. You two can go home and rest early today too. Kitazawa looked at Hinata Hyuga and Ino Yamanaka and said, Teacher Kitazawa, I want to continue training. Yamanaka Ino thought for a moment and then said. Unlike Hinata Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha, she didn't need to demand her parents' approval or praise. But she experienced the benefits of tree climbing training and the joy of progress, so she didn't want to stop. Me too. Hinata Hyuga said with a determined look. I didn't say to stop training. Kitazawa chuckled and said, what I mean is that the advanced tree climbing training is over. We'll start new training after the monthly exam. Yamanaka Ino smiled somewhat embarrassedly upon hearing this. Page 34. Hinata Hyuga secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She can no longer live without Kitazawa's training. I am back. As soon as Uchiha Sasuke arrived home, he shouted very loudly. Why are you so happy today? Uchiha Mikoto heard his voice, came out, and asked. Don't tell you. Sasuke Uchiha shook his head arrogantly and asked, where's Dad? Oh, this really makes Mom sad. Mikoto Uchiha pretended to be sullen, but her eyes were constantly observing Sasuke Uchiha out of the corner of her eye. Okay, I'll tell you. Seeing this, Sasuke Uchiha said, today I have successfully mastered the fire release, great fireball technique. So outstanding? No wonder he's my son. Mikoto Uchiha smiled and said gently. Of course. Sasuke Uchiha's lips twitched, and he almost couldn't help but laugh again. Fortunately, he was used to hearing praise from Uchiha Mikoto, so it didn't have that much power. Hasn't Daddy come back yet? Uchiha Sasuke asked again. He went to work at the Konoha police department. Mikoto Uchiha glanced at the clock on the wall and said, I should be able to go home soon. I am back. A familiar voice sounded. Elder brother. Sasuke Uchiha's face lit up with surprise. He ran to the door and asked, You're here so early today? Sasuke. Itachi Uchiha suppressed his exhaustion and explained, I just finished a mission. Brother, come with me. Uchiha Sasuke stepped forward, grabbed him, and ran outside. What's wrong, Sasuke? Uchiha Itachi asked, puzzled. Don't ask yet. Uchiha Sasuke finally stopped in front of the artificial lake in the courtyard. He glanced at Uchiha Itachi, then formed hand seals. The next second, a huge fireball appeared out of thin air, distorting the surrounding air and sending waves of heat rolling in. Itachi Uchiha's eyes lit up. Has it already acquired the power of his first use of fire release, great fireball technique? Sasuke, when did you become so strong? Itachi Uchiha asked, somewhat surprised. Because I'm a genius. Upon hearing his praise, Sasuke Uchiha became incredibly proud and arrogant. Ah! Suddenly, Itachi Uchiha realized something and said in a deep voice, Sasuke, the future is yours. The future belongs to us. Sasuke Uchiha, oblivious to his odd behavior, chuckled and corrected him. Uchiha Itachi smiled and nodded upon hearing this. Just then, footsteps sounded. A middle-aged man wearing a jonin vest and with a serious expression walked in. Father! Uchiha Sasuke rushed forward and shouted. Ah! Uchiha Fugaku nodded. Dad, look! Sasuke Uchiha immediately unleashed the great fireball technique. He's a step below your brother. Fugaku Uchiha glanced at it, then turned and went back into the house. He was exhausted and had no desire to play house with Uchiha Sasuke anymore. The constant new conflicts between the Uchiha clan and Konoha were driving him crazy. Since Uchiha Shisui's death, he has found it increasingly difficult to suppress the rebellious sentiments within the clan. Upon hearing this, Itachi Uchiha's smile vanished. Uchiha Sasuke was struck dumb. He couldn't accept this evaluation after a month of hard work. Sasuke, you're still young. When you reach my age, you'll be able to do even better than me. Itaki Uchiha reached out, patted his head, and said softly. Brother, use fire release, great fireball technique one more time. Uchiha Sasuke said sullenly, I want to see your full power. This. Itaki Uchiha hesitated. He has already awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, and to make him do his best is really too much of a bully. But Sasuke Uchiha's resolute expression made him realize that there was no room for maneuver. He sighed inwardly, stood up, and began to form hand seals. In an instant, a huge fireball, 8 or 9 meters high, appeared, illuminating the nearby buildings like a sun. Sasuke Uchiha was dumbfounded. Chapter 32 My fireball is huge. After school, Kitazawa left the school and went to Kurane's house. After knocking and receiving permission, he pushed the door open and went inside. In the living room, Kurane Yui and Yakumo Kurama sat side by side. Neither of them were wearing shoes, 2 pairs of delicate feet, one large and one small, were resting on the floor. Teacher Kitazawa. Kurama Yakumo said in a gentle tone. Her voice possesses a captivating magic. Kitazawa couldn't help but relax, feeling all the fatigue he had accumulated at work that day vanish. How about it? With a smile, Kurane asked, do you feel refreshed? Indeed. Kitazawa snapped out of his daze and remarked with a sigh, Yakumo's talent for illusion magic is truly terrifying. After all, it was the Kurama clan, which was once on par with the Uchiha clan. Kurane paused for a moment, then asked, you've come at the right time. What do you think we should name this sound illusion? The reason why Yakumo Kurama's voice was special was because she used a sound illusion technique. In other words, it was a D-rank illusion created by Kitazawa and Kurane over 2 weeks. Its effect is simple, it uses sound to lower the target's guard and relieve their fatigue. Name. Kitazawa stroked his chin. He is a typical person who is terrible at naming things. When playing games, just choosing a name can take 1 or 2 hours. How about we call it the art of talk therapy? Kitazawa had a sudden inspiration and said. Healing with words? Not bad, that suits the effect of this illusion. Kurane Yui pondered for a moment before speaking. Thank you, both teachers. Kurama Yakumo stood up, bowed slightly, and said. You are welcome. Kitazawa patted her head and said, if you can become a psychological medical ninja, it will also benefit us. Yes. Kurane Yui chimed in, we might need your help to treat us in the future. She wasn't trying to comfort Yakumo Kurama. In fact, the ninjas most vulnerable to psychological harm are those who practice genjutsu, illusionary techniques. The reason is simple. Illusion is a form of yin-based magic. Fighting an enemy is a clash of mental strength, and a slight misstep can leave psychological scars. For example, Kakashi Hatake from the original work. He was hit by Itaki Uchiha's Tsukuyomi, which severely damaged his mental state, leaving him in a coma for a full month. Of course, the real unlucky one was Uchiha Sasuke. Whenever the hatred in his heart lessened, Itaki Uchiha would use genjutsu to severely provoke him, repeatedly replaying the video of the massacre of his clan. Okay. Kurama Yakumo said firmly, I will do my best. Kitazawa and I can only help you with illusions. Kurane Yui pondered for a moment and said, but your true power lies in your bloodline limit, so you need to develop it properly. I see. Page 35. Kurama Yakumo nodded and said, Teacher Kitazawa has already shown me the direction, and I will use the power of my paintbrush. Your bloodline limit is very strong. Kitazawa thought of Ito from the original work and reminded him, don't be afraid of it, you have to accept it. I will. Kurama Yakumo smiled and said, isn't it all here with you guys? There won't be any problem. There's still plenty of time, take it slow. Kurane Yui stood up and said, Kitazawa, stay and have dinner before you leave. I'll go cook. Okay. Kitazawa didn't stand on ceremony and readily agreed. In fact, he has been eating at many restaurants over the past 2 weeks, and the two have become much closer. Let me help you. Kitazawa followed her into the kitchen. Kurane picked up the apron and put it on. She reached out and gathered her long hair, revealing her fair neck. After styling her hair, she picked up a spatula, exuding the aura of a virtuous wife and loving mother. After dinner, Kitazawa said goodbye to Kurane and went home. A new day begins, April 30th, the day of the monthly exam for Class A in Grade 1. Kitazawa will also participate, because he has to complete his mission. Getting first place in the monthly exam is not easy, but as the teacher who set the questions and was also in charge of the first grade, he already knew all the answers in advance. Xiao Kai is not Kai, meaning open, and teacher cheating is not considered cheating. Kitazawa arrived at the classroom early in the morning, which was also today's exam room. He suddenly let out a soft hum. Because he saw Uchiha Sasuke. Compared to yesterday's sunny weather, today is undoubtedly cloudy, as if a dark cloud is floating overhead. Sasuke, what's wrong? Kitazawa stepped forward and asked. I am fine. Uchiha Sasuke said without looking up. No, you're in trouble. Kitazawa sat down beside him and asked, if you don't tell me, how can your teacher help you? Since it concerned his mission, he naturally wouldn't allow Uchiha Sasuke to give up so easily. You cannot. Sasuke Uchiha thought for a moment and then said. He had seen Kitazawa's fire release, great fireball technique, which was powerful but not as good as Uchiha Ataka's. Kitazawa frowned immediately. Look at my temper. I'll give you one more chance to organize your thoughts. Why not? Kitazawa asked in broken sentences, have you ever seen the teacher at his peak? No. No. Sasuke Uchiha was taken aback and subconsciously asked, are you stronger than my brother? You're so frustrated because you must have seen your brother's fire release, great fireball technique. Kitazawa skipped over his question and asked instead, how tall? It's as tall as a 3-story building. Uchiha Sasuke gestured as he spoke. After witnessing Ataki Uchiha's fire release, great fireball technique last night, he felt that the difference between people was so great. They are obviously brothers. 9 meters? Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and said, not bad. Good. Sasuke Uchiha immediately sat up straight, his heart filled with renewed hope. I can teach you to blow a fireball that's 10 meters high. Kitazawa said with a serious expression. This isn't something he made up. The fire release, great fireball technique rewarded by the system was obtained by exhausting all relevant experience and then directly imparting it. In other words, no one in the entire ninja world understands fire release, great fireball technique better than him. As long as Kitazawa has enough chakra, he can create fireballs of any size he wants. My fireball is huge, please bear with it. Really? Sasuke Uchiha's eyes widened. What did I lie to you for? Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said, I'll teach you after the monthly exam. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Sasuke Uchiha said gratefully. Get ready for the exam. Kitazawa stood up and sat down on the podium. Teacher Kitazawa. As time passed, Hinata Hyuga, Ino Yamanaka, Naruto Uzumaki, and others arrived one by one. There is only one rule for the exam, cheating is strictly prohibited. Anyone caught cheating will have their score cancelled. Kitazawa said in a deep voice. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and the theory exam officially began. Kitazawa glanced at it. The reactions varied. Sasuke Uchiha and Shikamaru Nara were relatively relaxed, while Hinata Hyuga appeared tense and on high alert. Naruto scratched his head, looking at the contents of the test paper, feeling an itch in his head that he needed to grow a brain. Apart from Kitazawa's class, his other classes were just average. Kitazawa withdrew his gaze, took out the test paper, and began to work on the questions. However, before starting the exam, he created 2 shadow clones to patrol the exam hall. Chapter 33. Even the bottom of the class has its day. At 11 a.m., the bell rang. Please stop answering the questions immediately and remain seated while waiting. Kitazawa stood up and spoke. The classroom erupted into chaos. Fortunately, he had already accumulated enough prestige this month, and even the students who hadn't finished their work were very obedient and put down their pens. Meet at the school playground at 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you are 15 minutes late, your practical exam score will be cancelled. Kitazawa put away the test paper, gave a reminder, and left the classroom. Tomorrow is the practical exam, and he needs to finish grading the papers in the afternoon. Because the results of the practical exam can be obtained on the spot. With the addition of the theoretical exam scores, the rankings will be released tomorrow, which is very efficient. After Kitazawa left, the classroom became chaotic again, filled with groans and cries. Naruto Uzumaki sat in his seat and subconsciously looked out the window. The sky was azure blue. 3 words flashed through his mind: he messed up. The monthly exam was more difficult than he had imagined. There were several questions he wasn't confident about. Did you pass the exam? Nara Shikamaru noticed his expression and casually asked. It's not that I didn't do well on the test, it's just. I just had a problem with my performance. Naruto looked at him, a glimmer of hope in his eyes, and asked, do you think it's difficult? It's quite difficult. Nara Shikamaru sighed and said listlessly, I estimate I'll just barely pass, only 60 points. Me too. Koji Akimichi interjected. Naruto Uzumaki was greatly encouraged and felt gratified. Everyone thinks it's difficult, but he might still be number 1. Sasuke-kun, how did your exam go? Sakura Haruno picked up her school bag and came to Sasuke Uchiha. So. Sasuke Uchiha casually remarked, his hands in his pockets. He has already secured first place in the practical exam. As long as he gets into the top 3 in the theoretical exam, he'll be pretty much set. Sasuke-kun, you're too modest. Sakura Haruno's eyes sparkled with hearts as she transformed into a lovesick girl. She naturally didn't believe it, because given Uchiha Sasuke's cold-blooded reaction, only the number 1 could be worthy of him. I have something to do, you don't need to follow me. Uchiha Sasuke didn't bother talking to her and walked out of the classroom. He was a bit annoyed today because of the fire release, great fireball technique, and wasn't in a good mood. If Kitazawa hadn't given him hope, he wouldn't have even bothered to say those polite words. So. Sakura Haruno raised her hand, only to see him walking further and further away. The men of the Uchiha clan are truly ruthless. Yamanaka Ino shook her head and said. Page 36. You're not allowed to talk about Sasuke like that. Sakura Haruno immediately retorted, that's not heartless, that's cool. You're hopeless, Sakura. Yamanaka Ino spread her hands, looking quite helpless. And many more. Sakura Haruno suddenly realized what was happening and asked, you gave up on Sasuke? Yamanaka Ino was taken aback. Reminded by Haruno Sakura, she realized that she no longer had the same infatuation with Uchiha Sasuke. Was she busy with tree climbing training? Or had she developed an immunity to Kitazawa after watching him for so long? It's better to give up. Sakura Haruno exclaimed happily, Sasuke is definitely mine. Yes. Yamanaka Ino replied to her and then saw Hinata Hyuga sitting in her seat. She had already packed up her stationery, but did not leave immediately. Hinata. Yamanaka Ino spoke first, asking, shall we go home together? Because of the tree climbing training, she had come to regard Hinata Hyuga as a good friend. Hinata Hyuga paused for a moment, somewhat flustered, and said, you guys go first. Seeing this, Yamanaka Ino didn't press the matter further and left the classroom with Haruno Sakura. Hinata Hyuga immediately breathed a sigh of relief. After the classroom was empty, she picked up her school bag and went to Kitazawa's office. There was a knock on the door. "Come in." Kitazawa, who was grading papers, looked up and called out. Kitazawa-sensei." Hinata Hyuga couldn't help but smile slightly when she saw him. "Why don't you go home?" Kitazawa put down his pen and asked. That." Hinata Hyuga nearly had a heart attack upon hearing this, and a blush appeared on her face. "She came here for lunch as usual, but it seems that Kitazawa doesn't have any plans for lunch today." Hinata Hyuga felt embarrassed for a moment. "Since you're here, let's have dinner together." Kitazawa guessed what she was thinking and said with a smile. He truly hadn't expected Hinata Hyuga to come again at noon today. After all, the afternoon is a holiday, and tomorrow is the practical exam. "Okay." Hinata Hyuga was overjoyed and quickly took off her shoes before coming in. Seeing that Baizee was grading exam papers, she sat down on the sofa, her pair of fair and delicate feet gently patting the ground according to her mood. The time came to 12 o'clock. Kitazawa let out a breath and put down the test paper and pen. He looked at Hinata Hyuga and found her sitting obediently on the sofa, motionless, like some exquisite doll. Kitazawa's gaze fell on her snow-white legs. "Wearing white stockings? No, I can't stand it, it's just too much." Kitazawa banished the sudden thought from his mind. The reason is simple, he likes driving big trucks. "Hinata, dinner's ready." Kitazawa chuckled and called out jokingly. Hinata Hyuga snapped out of her daze, jumped off the sofa, and stood up straight. Only after meeting Kitazawa's ambiguous smile did she realize she had been tricked. Her little face quickly turned red. "Let's go eat." Kitazawa waved to her. Hinata Hyuga suppressed her shyness and walked up to him. Kitazawa patted her head and then took her to Ichiraku Ramen. After finishing her meal, Hinata Hyuga returned to the Hyuga clan. Kitazawa continued his morning work, grading exam papers. As dusk fell, all the exam papers had been graded and ranked according to their scores. Kitazawa looked at Hinata Hyuga, who had come in first place, and nodded in satisfaction. The intensive training during this period was not in vain. The second place was somewhat unexpected for him, it wasn't Uchiha Sasuke, but Haruno Sakura. But that's normal, because in the original work, Sakura Haruno was the top student in the class in terms of theory. Her theoretical grades played a significant role in her selection for Class 7. Besides that, there's the so-called bond between her and Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha. Kitazawa's gaze moved downwards, and he soon saw Naruto Uzumaki's name. Good news, no longer at the bottom. The bad news is, we're stuck in 28th place, neither here nor there. How to say? There is a lot of room for improvement. Just then, 3 lines of text appeared before Kitazawa's eyes. Current task, help your archenemy, Naruto Uzumaki, achieve a top 10 ranking in the next monthly exam. Task reward, yen attribute. Whether to accept? Kitazawa was somewhat surprised, but not much. After all, similar missions had been carried out before. To his surprise, the requirement this time was not 2nd place, but 10th place. Why doesn't the system have confidence in Naruto Uzumaki either? Kitazawa exclaimed, "Wow!" But from another perspective, Naruto Uzumaki was also one of the first students to prepare for the next ranking mission. Cough cough. Kitazawa chose to accept the mission. Having the yin attribute made it easier for him to master illusion magic. Chapter 34 Prison, all can be imprisoned. A new day. Kitazawa arrived at the Ninja Academy early. The once quiet playground was now bustling with activity, as many students were warming up. Kitazawa. Shuimu approached him from afar and walked right up to him. Mizuki. Kitazawa nodded slightly and asked, "Hasn't Irika arrived yet?" "I guess he's sleeping in." Shuimu said with a smile, "You don't know, he has had procrastination since he was a child, and he is also timid and has been scared to tears before." In fact, he deliberately did not inform Umino Irika. You were able to become good friends with him, were you also scared to tears at times? Kitazawa asked in return, unhurriedly. As it turns out, in a group of 3, there's bound to be an idiot. You, how is that possible? Shui Mu's expression changed, her smile vanished, and she quickly denied it. I know. Kitazawa smiled, patted him on the shoulder, and gave him a meaningful look. No, what do you know? You bastard! Shui Mu instinctively wanted to explain, but it was too late. Kitazawa returned to Class 1A. Damn Kitazawa! Mizuki gritted her teeth and said, one day, you'll regret this. He got angry and lashed out. Kitazawa is now under the watchful eye of Hiruzen Sarutobi, making it difficult for his underhanded tactics to be effective. He took a deep breath and his gaze fell on Hyaganiji, who was not far away. His original purpose in seeking out Kitazawa was to show off his genius student, but he ended up being falsely accused. Kitazawa stood there, touching his chin. As the saying goes, a gentleman takes revenge even after 10 years, but he is not a gentleman. Moreover, he can accept being thought about by women, but he cannot accept being thought about by men. However, this is no easy task. After all, SMTH hasn't made any major mistakes yet. Teacher Kitazawa. Naruto's voice rang out. He is as energetic as ever. Kitazawa looked at him, a strange light flashing in his eyes. Page 37. He suddenly came up with a plan, to use Naruto Uzumaki to design Mizuki. In the original work, there was a scene where Mizuki tricked Naruto Uzumaki into stealing the scroll of seals. Kitazawa's past life was very strange. The Book of Seals records various powerful forbidden techniques of Konoha village. How could it be stolen so easily? Although Kitazawa has never hesitated to assume the worst about anyone, there must be something fishy about this matter, like Hiruzen Sarutobi's micromanagement. The wicked teacher, Mizuki, has set his sights on you, a budding flower. Please send him a song of tears behind bars. Current mission, send Shuimu to prison. Mission reward, fire release, heavenly prison. Kitazawa raised an eyebrow, overjoyed. Shuimu, your rat life will be ended with a single click. Hell, any place can be imprisoned. In the land of grass, there is a prison called Hojiki Castle, and in that prison lives an excellent jailer named Mui. His signature fire-style ninjutsu is fire release, heavenly prison. The effect is not bad, it can seal the target's chakra, preventing it from coalescing. What's even more amazing is that once a target is hit by fire release, heavenly prison, it will automatically burst into flames if the distance is too far. This ninjutsu is called fire release, but it is actually fire release combined with sealing techniques. The power of sealing techniques in the ninja world is well known, along with Sage Mode, they are considered the foundational code of the ninja world. It's incredibly sinister. Teacher Kitazawa. Sasuke Uchiha glanced at Naruto Uzumaki, hesitated for a few seconds, and then walked up to Kitazawa. Sasuke. Naruto Uzumaki greeted him with a big smile. I won't lose to you in this physical fitness test. Sasuke Uchiha felt that his cheerful laughter was a form of mockery, so he said in a cold voice. If I can beat you the first time, I can beat you the second time. Naruto Uzumaki, brimming with confidence, declared, let's see who comes in first place. Have you settled down yet? Let's meet at the top. Sasuke Uchiha took a step back without making a sound. If he stays with Naruto Uzumaki any longer, he'll definitely be dragged down to the same level. Ah! A beast-like howl rang out. Unknown Irika charged forward at the fastest speed he had ever seen. At 17, I was a teacher. Kitazawa glanced at the time, it was 8:55. He was just a little bit late. I'm sorry, Kitazawa-senpai. Umino Irika stopped, panting heavily, and said, drenched in sweat. It's nothing, as long as I made it. Kitazawa paused for a moment and then said, "Be careful of Mizuki." "What?" Irika Umino looked completely bewildered. "What does this mean? Is there a mole who stopped the exam? Is there a traitor among us? All right, everyone gather around. I'm going to explain the rules for this practical exam now." Kitazawa clapped his hands, attracting everyone's attention. Under normal circumstances, the actual test is a real battle for men. However, they had only been enrolled for a month and had not fully mastered the three bodies technique. It was just a bunch of noobs fighting each other. Besides, if a real fight were to break out, it would be a one-sided massacre for students from ninja clans. To prevent civilian ninjas from breaking through the defenses, a matchmaking mechanism was not included in the first practical exam. This practical test consists of 4 events: clone technique, physical fitness test, shuriken throwing, and kunao throwing. Kitazawa held up 4 fingers and said, "Let me demonstrate first." It was supposed to be a demonstration, but it actually secretly included a real-world exam. Kitazawa took out a kunao and a shuriken, then twirled them with both hands and threw them. A sonorous sound. The kunao and shuriken collided, but after an arc, they each hit the bullseye precisely. Clearly, he did it on purpose, just to guard against Uchiha Sasuke. Amazing! Naruto Uzumaki cheered in response. However, he didn't pretend, because this blind throw was indeed very cool. Hinata Hyuga unconsciously clenched her fists, her eyes filled with longing. If only she could dominate like Kitazawa-sensei, but it's not impossible. If she wins first place, Hayashi Hyuga will definitely look at her with new respect. Uchiha Sasuke sensed the presence of someone of his kind. What's going on with this Kitazawa-sensei? The demonstration was so impressive. Sasuke Uchiha sighed inwardly. Unfortunately, he didn't learn how to wield shuriken, so he couldn't amaze the audience and steal the spotlight. The first test item, the ability to create clones. Kitazawa then demonstrated the clone technique and said, "Come up one by one in order." He took out a roster and a pen and began to score the participants. "It's my turn." Naruto Uzumaki, like the most fierce rooster among roosters, walked to the middle of the playground. "Naruto, do your best." Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Koji shouted loudly. Naruto glanced at the crowd and knew that most people didn't think highly of him. But Kitazawa's encouraging gaze deeply moved him. "If I collapse here, my student life will be over." Clone technique. Naruto Uzumaki roared and formed hand seals. Kitazawa twitched the corner of his mouth. "Who taught you this? Who calls out the name of a ninjutsu when performing it?" Bang! 2 lifelike Naruto Uzumaki figures appeared. "Good!" Kitazawa praised, "This was an exceptional performance." "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." Naruto Uzumaki said excitedly. Hokage's office. A crystal ball sits on the desk, its image reflecting Naruto Uzumaki's face. Hiruzen Sarutobi stroked his beard, thinking to himself that Kitazawa was indeed quite capable. Chapter 35 Glory belongs to the Uchiha. Naruto waved his hands, spun around, and then returned to the group. Kitazawa couldn't help but smile. He remembered the fisherman from his past life who, after catching a giant fish, would show it off everywhere. Kitazawa picked up his pen and wrote down 80 on the roster. Naruto's exceptional performance, compared to his own past achievements, was actually only slightly above average, with some flaws. But this score already surpasses that of most of the students in the class. It wasn't until Uchiha Sasuke entered the fray that the first perfect score was achieved. "Very good." Kitazawa nodded slightly and said. Uchiha Sasuke was somewhat lost in thought. Because he remembered that his previous clone technique wasn't that powerful. He quickly thought of the tree climbing training that Kitazawa had given him. The improvement in chakra control is not only useful for fire release, great fireball technique, but also for other ninjutsu. "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." Uchiha Sasuke said sincerely. Next person. Kitazawa glanced at the list and called out, Nara Shikamaru. Nara Shikamaru, exuding a lazy and carefree aura, walked up. He formed a hand seal and created 2 presentable clones, then slowly returned to the queue. How can you endure it at your age? Young people should be full of vigor. Kitazawa could tell at a glance that Nara Shikamaru was just being perfunctory. Yesterday's theory test was the same, he scored exactly 60 points, no more, no less. He wasn't hiding his abilities, he just found it troublesome. In the original work, Nara Shikamaru only changed after his teacher Sarutobi Asuma sacrificed himself. Hinata Hyuga. Kitazawa looked at the roster and read it aloud. Hinata Hyuga took a deep breath and slowly walked to the center of the playground. Facing the gazes of the crowd, she couldn't help but feel nervous. Hinata Hyuga subconsciously looked away. Page 38. Seeing Kitazawa reminded me of his special training, which calmed me down considerably. Clone technique. Hinata Hyuga formed hand seals and created 2 identical clones. He's not inferior to Sasuke. Yamanaka Ino looked surprised. Sasuke Uchiha's expression hardened slightly. Hinata Hyuga's clone technique is indeed perfect, it can already pose a threat to him. He suddenly realized that it was Kitazawa's doing. Hinata Hyuga, like him, underwent tree climbing training. Thinking of this, Uchiha Sasuke looked at Yamanaka Ino. Yakumo Kurama did not participate in the exam due to poor health. Naruto Uzumaki was also climbing the tree, but he was making slow progress and hadn't finished yet, leaving only Ino Yamanaka in the end. Uchiha Sasuke waited quietly. Soon, it was Yamanaka Ino's turn. As he expected, her ability to create clones was also perfect, only slightly inferior to his. Fortunately, the next 3 tests were unrelated to chakra control. Sasuke Uchiha let out a breath. He couldn't imagine how disappointed his father and brother would be if he didn't get first place. When did Ino become so amazing? Koji Akimichi nudged Shikamaru Nara and asked, what happened? Nara Shikamaru was used as an external brain because of his high intelligence. Sakura Haruno looked at him upon hearing this. As Yamanaka Ino's best friend, she was well aware of her abilities. Her rapid progress has surprised her. It was Kitazawa-sensei's special training. Uchiha Sasuke interjected. Special training? Sakura Haruno suddenly remembered something and asked, is it during the free time after each practical training session? I see. After being reminded by her, Koji Akimichi also remembered. Teacher Kitazawa is truly amazing. Nara Shikamaru raised an eyebrow and said. In his understanding, it was truly rare for a commoner ninja to be so capable. Yes. Koji Akimichi nodded in agreement. Sasuke Uchiha, Ino Yamanaka, Naruto Uzumaki, and Hinata Hyuga, who participated in the special training, all improved significantly. I also need to go. Sakura Haruno clenched her fist and said. Then you need to work even harder. Yamanaka Ino rejoined the group and said with a smile. Sakura Haruno excels in theoretical classes, but her practical skills are only average. Unlike Sasuke Uchiha and others from the ninja clan who had already learned the techniques, she was learning for the first time, so it took her a long time to learn. The clone technique test is over. Next up is kunai throwing. Kitazawa finished scoring and announced. Compared to the ever-changing techniques of the clone technique, throwing kunai is more normal. The most outstanding one was Uchiha Sasuke. He copied Kitazawa's technique, but not by blindly throwing. Horror! Kitazawa was very relieved. Because Sasuke Uchiha hasn't awakened his Sharingan yet, otherwise, his mission would most likely have failed. After throwing kunai, it's time to throw shuriken. Both are commonly used ninja tools, so they are quite similar, and so are the performances of the group, though Uchiha Sasuke was the most impressive. It was 10 o'clock, and only the physical fitness test remained in the practical exam. Uchiha Sasuke and the others arrived at the track. The rules for the physical fitness test are very simple. Kitazawa explained, we only run 50 laps, and the ranking is based on the order in which we arrive at the finish line. After he finished speaking, he waved to Umino Irika, who was not far away. Senior Kitazawa. Umino Irika immediately walked up to him. You will be responsible for scoring the physical fitness test. Kitazawa handed him the roster and a pen. You want to leave? Umino Irika paused for a moment, then said, according to the school's rules, 2 teachers must be present during the practical exam. I won't leave, I'll run with them. Kitazawa shook his head and said. What? Irika Umino was even more puzzled. What? The teacher is warming up? My presence helps reduce their tension and makes them feel like it's just a regular physical training session. Kitazawa explained with a smile, this will help improve their grades. Is that so? Irika Umino suddenly realized, and exclaimed, no wonder he's the best teacher at the Ninja Academy. Watch well and study hard. Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder, walked onto the track, and said, start. Under his guidance, Sasuke Uchiha and the others began running. Physical training is conducted almost every week. Everyone knew each other well, and the results were similar. Ha ha ha, I'm number 1 again. Naruto jumped and danced with joy. You're obsessed with being number 1. Kitazawa shook his head. Uchiha Sasuke plopped down on the ground, feeling sore all over. Why does this guy have so much stamina? Fortunately, Naruto Uzumaki only got first place in the physical fitness test, but he got first place in the other 3 events. 3 firsts, you think you can beat me? After considering it for a moment, Uchiha Sasuke was completely relieved. The glory will surely belong to the Uchiha. Current task, achieve first place in the class in the April monthly exam. Mission reward, wind release, vacuum jewel. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. Kitazawa smiled as he looked at the 3 lines of text that suddenly appeared before him. With the reward in hand, all the hard work was worthwhile. Chapter 36 The Hokage's Summoning. After the physical fitness test, the students in Class A of Grade 1 sat on the ground to rest, disregarding their image. But their gazes were all fixed on Kitazawa and Umino Irika, because they were conducting a live ranking exercise. I wonder how many points I can get. Sakura Haruno glanced at the rather calm Sasuke Uchiha and grinned foolishly, it would be best if I could sit next to Sasuke-kun. Do your best. Yamanaka Ino flicked a strand of her golden hair and said with a nonchalant air, this is just a regular monthly exam. Good. Koji Akimichi was eating potato chips, crunching them with gusto. Passing is a victory. Nara Shikamaru said lazily. Since none of you care, then I won't stand on ceremony. I'll take first place. Kaiba Inyazuka smiled confidently and said. The first place definitely belongs to Sasuke-kun. Sakura Haruno retorted. The outcome is still uncertain, and we are both number 1. Naruto Uzumaki remembered Kitazawa's words and said, maybe I'll be number 1. After he finished speaking, he noticed that his friends nearby were all looking at him with surprise. What are you looking at me for? Naruto asked, puzzled. It's really unexpected to hear such words from you. Nara Shikamaru said with a smile. That's what Kitazawa-sensei said. Naruto Uzumaki blinked and said. No wonder. Yamanaka Ino nodded and said. Page 39. Uchiha Sasuke did not participate in the exchange. Because in his view, first place was already his for the taking. Hinata Hyuga didn't join in their conversation either. Because she was engrossed in her own world, she didn't hear what they were saying at all. She clenched her hands, the girl praying, not wanting to disappoint Kitazawa. I will now announce the results. Kitazawa walked up to them with the roster in his hand. Everyone stood up and stared at him expectantly. First place. Kitazawa smiled. Hinata Hyuga. The crowd was quiet for a few seconds, then a commotion broke out. Hinata Hyuga doesn't have much of a presence in her class because of her personality. But who would have thought that something big would happen so suddenly? How is this possible? Sasuke Uchiha froze on the spot, his calm expression turning into shock. The first place, which was a sure thing, slipped away from him just like that. He clenched his fists instinctively, a sense of resentment rising in his heart. He could accept losing to Naruto in physical training, since it was a minor aspect. But losing to Hinata Hyuga in the monthly exam left him in disbelief, as if he were in a dream. Ah, it really wasn't me. Naruto Uzumaki put his hands behind his head and said. He had actually anticipated this, but had only hoped for a miracle. Now it seems the miracle did not happen. But isn't the number one spot held by that arrogant Uchiha Sasuke? What's happening here? Sakura Haruno couldn't understand it, but she was deeply shocked. I really didn't expect that. Yamanaka Ino remarked with emotion. Has the invincible Uchiha clan fallen? Although Nara Shikamaru, Akimichi Koji, Inyazuka Kaiba, and Abarame Shino didn't say anything, their expressions said it all. Hinata Hyuga felt her heart pounding as everyone watched her. She suddenly had a strange feeling, like the first time she skipped class by climbing over the wall. It was incredibly exciting. Hinata ranked first in the theoretical exam and second in the practical exam, making her the best overall. Kitazawa explained for a moment, then read aloud, second place, Uchiha Sasuke. In fact, Hinata Hyuga's victory over Sasuke Uchiha was largely thanks to Sakura Haruno and Naruto Uzumaki. Because Sakura Haruno took second place in his theoretical exam, and Naruto Uzumaki took first place in his physical fitness test. Uchiha Sasuke stood there expressionless, his face clearly showing his unhappiness. No one will remember the second place, and the Uchiha clan doesn't need a second place. Third place, Abarame Shino. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then read aloud. Many people looked bewildered. Who is this? Do we have a classmate named Shino Abarame? If Hinata Hyuga has little presence, then Shino Abarame is completely absent. Fourth place, Yamanaka Ino. Fifth place, Haruno Sakura. Sixth place, Inyazuka Kaiba. 10th place, Akimichi Koji. Kitazawa read it slowly and deliberately. 6th place is also acceptable. Kaiba Inyazuka sighed and said. It wasn't that he was incompetent, but rather that the enemy's firepower was too intense. Why not me? Naruto Uzumaki was struck dumb. Not only did he not get first place, but he didn't even make it into the top 10. He subconsciously looked at Koji Akimichi. You said you'd be the same, so why are you flying so high? Naruto. Kaiba Inyazuka noticed his expression and immediately changed his mood. The smile doesn't disappear, it just shifts. Humph. Naruto Uzumaki retorted defiantly, I'll definitely surpass you next time. Come on. Kaiba Inyazuka patted him on the shoulder, his face full of disbelief. 17th place, Naruto Uzumaki. 20th place, Shikamaru Nara. Kitazawa read out the remaining rankings in one breath. Only 17th place? Damn it! Naruto Uzumaki said with a regretful look, if I had gotten those questions right, I could definitely have been in the top 10. Students who didn't do well on the test shouldn't be discouraged, there will be many more opportunities later. Kitazawa looked around and said, that's all for today, everyone. See you next Monday. Goodbye teacher. After greeting each other, the students walked out one by one. Kitazawa, carrying the roster, arrived at the conference room with Umino Irika. The next tasks are ranking the entire grade and holding a school-wide commendation ceremony. They arrived rather late, there were already quite a few teachers there. Kitazawa, Irika. Shui Mu's voice rang out. Irika Umino saw him and was about to respond when he suddenly remembered Kitazawa's suggestion. Is there a problem with SMTH? Oh right, he didn't wake me up this morning? Was it intentional? Or was it accidental? How did your class do on the exam? Shui Mu cut to the chase, asking with a smile, was it a perfect score? Did anyone in your class get a perfect score? Umino Irika asked with a surprised look. Luckily, there was one. Mizuki feigned modesty and said, it is the genius of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Niji. Awesome! No wonder he was last year's outstanding student representative, Umino Irika remarked. Outstanding student representatives are those students selected to give speeches at the commendation ceremony. Kitazawa frowned slightly. Hinata Hyuga tried her best, but she still didn't get a perfect score. The reason lies in the actual exam. She lost to Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. The timing of this speech has become uncertain. However, it's not a big problem. He has Hiruzen Sarutobi as his backer, and Niji Hyuga already gave a speech last year. It seems there are no perfect scores in your class, but that's okay, after all, it's the first monthly exam. Shui Mu was overjoyed and said. You're right. Kitazawa said calmly. Shui Mu's smile froze instantly. I don't want to see that expression, I want to see your jealous expression. Class teachers, please hand me the grade sheets. Hisao Sarutobi walked in and said directly, in addition, the top student in each grade will automatically be included in the list of student representative candidates. Kitazawa remained seated, while Umino Irika stepped forward to hand in his report card. After collecting everything, Sarutobi Hisao left cleanly and efficiently. Tenzawa-senpai, and Mizuki. Irika Umino offered, I'll treat you to dinner. Okay. Mizuki said with a smile, I want to eat the most expensive barbecue. No problem. Although Irika Umino was a little reluctant, he still agreed. Just as the three of them stepped out of the conference room, a dark figure suddenly appeared in front of them. An ANBU ninja. The teachers nearby were startled. Kitazawa. The ANBU ninja spoke up, the Hokage wishes to see you. Okay. Kitazawa nodded, then looked at Umino Irika and said, looks like we can't eat today. I'll treat you next time. After he finished speaking, he left the Ninja Academy with the ANBU ninja. A summons from the Hokage. Irika Umino was stunned for a long time. For an ordinary Chunin like him, the Hokage was simply too far removed from his reality. The fact that Kitazawa was summoned made him feel unreal. The teachers nearby also showed their amazement and envy. Page 40. In Konoha village, being favored by the Hokage, getting promoted and receiving a raise, marrying a beautiful and wealthy woman, and reaching the pinnacle of life is not a dream. Shuimu, on the other hand, was completely unable to control her emotions. He was the only student in the entire school to get a perfect score, so why was Kitazawa summoned instead of him? This is unfair. I hate it. A look of resentment appeared in Mizuki's eyes. Umino Irika glanced at it and was immediately startled. He immediately became wary. Chapter 37 Hiruzen Sarutobi's Reward. As Kitazawa walked, he pondered why Hiruzen Sarutobi had sought him out. At least one thing is certain, Hiruzen Sarutobi won't use the Inma weapon to punish him with 6 strikes in 1 second, because he didn't do anything wrong. He speculated that it was related to his monthly exam results, and there might even be a reward. Go in. The ANBU ninja stopped in front of the Hokage's office. Kitazawa nodded slightly and then pushed open the door. You've come, Kitazawa. Hiruzen Sarutobi raised his head and spoke. Hokage-sama. Kitazawa quickly bowed. I've looked at your class's report card, it's very good. Hiruzen Sarutobi praised, the number of students scoring over 80 is the highest in the entire school. The theory exam is out of 100 points, and so is the practical exam. The final ranking is a combination of the theoretical and practical exam scores, with a maximum score of 100. In Hiruzen Sarutobi's view, students who score above 80 are the hope for Konoha's future. It's all thanks to the Hokage's excellent guidance, Kitazawa said with a serious expression. There's no need for formalities, I've seen everything you've done. Hiruzen Sarutobi laughed and said, it was definitely the right choice to entrust Class 1A to you. I will do my best to teach them well and cultivate a group of outstanding successors of the Will of Fire, Kitazawa stated. Very good. Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded in satisfaction and asked, I've always been fair in my rewards and punishments. What kind of reward do you want? Money? Or ninjutsu? I want wind release ninjutsu. Kitazawa thought for a moment and then said. Although money is important, he doesn't lack it for the time being. Solving the problem of how to obtain the ninjutsu rewards from the system is the most urgent task. You'll go with Ching later to choose a B-rank wind release ninjutsu. After a moment's thought, Hiruzen Sarutobi said. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Kitazawa was somewhat surprised. Leaving aside ninjas from ninja clans, ordinary ninjas rarely have access to B-rank ninjutsu. Giving away a B-rank ninjutsu based solely on a monthly exam score is undoubtedly very generous. For Kitazawa, this was a timely help. The wind release, vacuum ball he just obtained is a B-rank wind release ninjutsu. This is what you deserve. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled and asked again, what do you think of Naruto? Naruto. Kitazawa organized his thoughts and said, he is an optimistic, cheerful, and loyal child. Naruto's parents were kind to Konoha village. Hiruzen Sarutobi gave Kitazawa an appreciative look and said, I hope you can take good care of him, especially in his studies. He did not explicitly state that Naruto Uzumaki was the son of the fourth Hokage. After all, this matter is a top secret in Konoha village. Given Kitazawa's current strength and status, he is not qualified to know. Okay. Kitazawa agreed without hesitation. He already had a mission from the system, and now he has another mission from Hiruzen Sarutobi. It's a win-win situation, he wins twice. Then I'll leave it to you, Kitazawa. Hiruzen Sarutobi waved his hand and said, Haru is already waiting for you outside the door. Thank you, Lord Hokage. I shall take my leave now. Kitazawa understood his order to leave and turned to go. As Hiruzen Sarutobi watched his figure, a dazed look appeared on his face, and various memories surfaced. He thought of Minato Namikaze from back then. Although he rose to fame during the Third Shinobi World War, he was already a renowned outstanding student in Konoha at the Ninja Academy. He was number one in both theory and practice, and he was also a commoner ninja. It was precisely because of his extraordinary talent that he was assigned to be Jiraiya's student. Minato Namikaze lived up to expectations, saving the village from collapse and helping Konoha win the Third Shinobi World War. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. That vibrant scene, where all things flourish, is still vivid in my mind. I hope Naruto can become the next Minato. Hiruzen Sarutobi snapped out of his daze and said. Kitazawa, led by Haru, arrived at the ninjutsu storage room. The scrolls on this bookshelf are all B-rank wind release ninjutsu. Ching pointed to the bookshelf not far away and said, you can take one scroll, but remember not to look through the scrolls on the other bookshelves. Okay. Kitazawa nodded and walked to the bookshelf. He glanced at it and immediately locked onto wind release, vacuum ball. But he didn't act immediately, instead, he hesitated for a few minutes before picking it up. Take it back and memorize the contents. I'll come back to you in a week to retrieve the scroll. Ching reminded her. Ah. Kitazawa put away the scroll and returned to the Ninja Academy. For the students, the monthly exams are over. But he is a teacher, and he has other things to do. After lunch, the teachers gathered together for a meeting. As soon as Kitazawa entered the conference room, all eyes fell on him. There was nothing he could do, he had just been summoned by Hiruzen Sarutobi. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino waved excitedly at him. He and Kitazawa both taught the first year A class, so he benefited from it and was very happy. Only Shui Mu, standing next to him, displayed complex emotions, much like a Sichuan opera face-changing act. Kitazawa, congratulations! Shuimu finally put on her usual smiling face. Thank you. Kitazawa replied and then sat down. How did you feel when you met the Hokage? Umino Irika asked enviously. I don't feel anything. Kitazawa shook his head and said, it's not like this is the first time I've met the Hokage. Invisible pretense is the most deadly. Umino Irika suddenly got stuck. Shui Mu subconsciously clenched his fist. If it weren't for the inappropriate situation, he would have loved to punch him. After all, in the original work, he was willing to kill his injured teammates in order to complete his mission. What did the Hokage say? Umino Irika asked curiously. It's a compliment to the achievements of the first grade A class students. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then said, he also gave me a B-rank wind release ninjutsu. B-rank. Irika Umino gasped and immediately exclaimed, the Hokage is so generous. If you do a good job, you'll also receive a reward from the Hokage. Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said, I will work hard. Umino Irika said with great fighting spirit. Shui Mu looked at them, his teeth grinding together. He had taught a student who got a perfect score, so why wasn't he rewarded? Where is the Hokage being generous? He's clearly showing favoritism. After chatting for a while, Hisao Sarutobi came in. The first thing he did was to distribute the ranking list for the entire grade. Kitazawa glanced at it. The top 10 students in the entire grade are the top 10 students in Class A of Grade 1. He wasn't surprised, because when the classes were divided, the best students were put into Class A. Now we announce the outstanding student representatives from this monthly exam. Hisao Sarutobi paused for a moment, then said, Hinata Hyuga. Shui Mu's smile froze. When he heard the first two words, he could not contain his joy, but the last two words plunged him into an icy abyss. Why not Hyuga Niji? Shui Mu immediately lost his composure, subconsciously stood up, and asked. This is the Hokage's decision. Hisao Sarutobi said calmly. But Shui Mu was extremely unwilling. Kitazawa had more questions selected than him, which was a loss for him. Summoned by the Hokage, this is the second time. Losing an outstanding student representative is a lose-lose-lose situation for all three parties. Losing 3 times in a month, what's the point of him living? Chapter 38 Konoha's number 1 technician. The residents of the Hyuga clan. After leaving school, Hinata Hyuga ran straight home. She gripped the report card tightly, exhaled, and then slowly walked into the courtyard. The Hyuga clan is very particular about rules and etiquette. If she just ran in, she would definitely be reprimanded. Father. Hinata Hyuga arrived at the study where Hayashi Hyuga was. Come in. A rather authoritative voice rang out. Hinata Hyuga opened the door, took off her shoes, and walked into the study. What's the matter? Hayashi Hyuga sat cross-legged on the tatami mat, holding a book in his hand. The monthly exam is over, and the results are out. Hinata Hyuga stepped forward, knelt down in front of him, and turned her fair, delicate solace outward. How many? Hayashi Hyuga asked calmly. He already knew very well about Hinata Hyuga's Class A in the first year. How should I put it? It's a place where hidden talents abound. The younger generation of all the major ninja clans in Konoha village gathered in Class 1A. Especially noteworthy is Sasuke Uchiha, the younger brother of the super genius Itachi Uchiha. Hayashi Hyuga sighed inwardly. Their Hyuga clan also has a genius, Hyuga Niji, but unfortunately he is from the branch family. As for Hinata Hyuga, he had already given up hope. Because Hinata Hanabi has already been born. According to the rules of the Hyuga clan, there can only be one head family member in each generation, and the rest will be carved into the caged bird seal and become branch families. In theory, one of Hinata Hyuga and Hanabi Hyuga will become a member of the branch family. The so-called caged bird is a means of protecting one's disdain from being exposed. On the other hand, the main family can control the branch families through the caged bird. "Father, please look." Hinata Hyuga handed over her report card with great anticipation. "Hey? First place." Hiashi Hyuga took the report card, glanced at it, and his expression immediately changed. How could he be number one? Doubt arose, and he unusually lost his composure. This ranking far exceeded his expectations, or rather, he never imagined that Hinata Hyuga would get first place. Hinata Hyuga noticed his expression. A feeling of joy welled up inside her. Clearly, her first place finish surprised Hiashi Hyuga. "Hinata." After reviewing the report card, Hiashi Hyuga said, "You did very well and did not disgrace the Hyuga clan." "Thank you, father." Hinata Hyuga couldn't help but show an excited expression when she heard Hiashi Hyuga's praise for the first time. "How did you get first place?" Hiashi Hyuga asked curiously. "It was thanks to Kitazawa-sensei's help." Hinata Hyuga stated truthfully. "Kitazawa?" Hiashi Hyuga seemed to be deep in thought. Hyuga Takuma, whom he sent to protect Hyuga Hinata, reported Kitazawa's situation to him. One of the things that left the deepest impression on him was that he helped teach a lesson to the brats who were bullying Hinata Hyuga. "It seems he is a good teacher." Hiashi Hyuga nodded slightly and said. "Ah." Hinata Hyuga said earnestly, "Kitazawa-sensei is amazing. What's so great about a chunin? At most, their teaching level is not bad." Hiashi Hyuga disagreed. "Teacher Kitazawa taught me how to climb trees, saying it could improve chakra control." Hinata Hyuga started talking. "Is this still his daughter?" Hiashi Hyuga felt a sense of unfamiliarity as he watched Hinata Hyuga speaking eloquently. In the past, she was considered quite talkative if she could say 5 sentences in front of him. But now she's completely different, she's very lively. The root of all this is undoubtedly that Kitazawa-sensei. Hiashi Hyuga fell silent. It's a pity it's too late. Now that Hinata Hanabi has been born, the tragedy between her and Hinata Hisashi might be repeated. Kitazawa left the ninja academy. As he walked down the street, he thought to himself, it's so good to have someone to rely on. Whether it was him being selected for the 30 questions or Hinata Hyuga being chosen as the outstanding student representative, it was all Hiruzen Sarutobi's doing. While privileges are certainly enjoyable, Kitazawa is well aware that they are all due to his status as a teacher and his bond with Naruto Uzumaki. When it really comes down to it, he can't do anything and has no say in Konoha. Strength is the most important thing. Kitazawa walked along, recalling his mission. The mission to have Hinata Hyuga fight Tsunade can be completed after the speech ends. Her strength far surpasses Tsunade's. If she were to change her personality, she would be guaranteed to win. The task of sending Shuimu to prison will be put aside for now, as there is no suitable opportunity. Moreover, if you have a conflict with him, it will most likely end in a fight. Kitazawa has mastered quite a few ninjutsu, but his chakra is only average. He will be drained of his chakra in less than 2 ninjutsu. Just to be on the safe side, we need to strengthen it again. The key lies in the task of learning Naruto's sexy jutsu, which will grant him 1/10 of his chakra limit. Developing seduction techniques isn't difficult, but it would ruin his image as a bright and honest teacher, and might even offend Hiruzen Sarutobi. Kitazawa stroked his chin. Is there anyone willing to take the blame for him? He pondered for a moment, then his eyes lit up. There really was such a person. Kakashi Hatake. Kitazawa thought about it more and felt it was a good fit. First, he has the ability to develop it. Secondly, he is a fan of Make-out Paradise and can use shameless ninjutsu like the 1,000 Years of Death. Third, he has impeccable political background, so Hiruzen Sarutobi wouldn't blame him. Thinking of this, Kitazawa immediately changed course. Soon, he arrived at Kakashi Hotaki's house. I don't know if he's here or not. Kitazawa stepped forward and knocked on the door. After a short wait, the door opened. Kakashi Hotaki, with silver hair and his face mostly covered, appeared. Kakashi, I have something I'd like to ask you for help with. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then reminded him, don't tell anyone about this. You're going to defect? Kakashi Hotaki suddenly asked. How could that be? You're slandering me. Kitazawa quickly replied, there is only one son in my heart, and that is the Hokage. What's that? Kakashi Hotaki stared at him with his dead fish eyes and asked. Do you know Naruto Uzumaki? Kitazawa got back to the main topic. What do you mean? When Kakashi Hotaki heard the familiar name, his eyes suddenly lit up. He not only knew Naruto Uzumaki, but he had been watching over him even before Naruto was born. I am now a teacher at the Ninja Academy. Kitazawa explained, and Naruto is one of my students. So? Kakashi Hotaki asked in a puzzled tone. Naruto is currently developing a ninjutsu based on the transformation technique. Kitazawa sighed and said, you know I'm just an ordinary chunin, I don't have that ability, you understand. He's only 6 years old and he's already able to develop ninjutsu. Kakashi Hotaki was surprised. But when you think about how Naruto Uzumaki is Minato Namikaze's son, it seems acceptable. After all, the Raise Nan, which is said to be the ultimate transformation of chakra forms, was developed by Minato Namikaze. No wonder he's the teacher's son. Kakashi Hotaki sighed inwardly. You are the copy ninja, the #1 technician in Konoha. This task can only be done by you. Kitazawa asked earnestly, are you willing to help? Don't call me the #1 technician. Kakashi Hotaki paused for a moment and said, I'm free tomorrow. Bring Naruto to see me. Although he had closed his heart to love, he couldn't refuse his teacher's son. Chapter 39 Kitazawa, you've ruined my life. Kitazawa returned home. He sat on the sofa and took out the ninjutsu scroll that Hiruzen Sarutobi had rewarded him with, Wind Release, Vacuum Ball, a rank B ninjutsu with high learning difficulty. How to say? Although it is the same Wind Release ninjutsu, the details on the scroll are nowhere near as detailed as the Wind Release, Vacuum Ball that the system rewarded. In short, there's nothing noteworthy. The sun sets and rises again. A new day begins. Kitazawa opened his eyes and stretched. Today is Saturday, and he doesn't have to go to the Ninja Academy, but his workload hasn't decreased. Besides helping Naruto Uzumaki find a teacher, he also needs to discuss with Kurane Yui the next genjutsu for Yakumo Kurama. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then got up, changed his clothes, and went to the door. The door opened, and a vibrant red came into view. Kurane changed into a red off-shoulder dress with a low neckline, her snow-white skin trembling slightly with her breath. Kitazawa glanced at it subconsciously and thought to himself that it was indeed not small. What are you standing there for? Aren't you welcoming me? Sunset Red asked with a smile. How dare you? Kitazawa took the bag from her hand and said, I'm so lucky to have such a beautiful lady here today. You still have such a lovely voice. Kurane stepped forward, walked to the shoe cabinet, and then bent down to take off her shoes. Beneath the skirt were her calves, encased in black stockings, which appeared perfectly smooth and without an ounce of excess fat. I'm just telling the truth. Kitazawa looked away, glanced at the bag, and asked, why is it alcohol? Why can't it be alcohol? The black silk-clad feet of Yui Kurane stomped on the floor with a dull thud. Do you drink alcohol in the morning too? Kitazawa followed behind her and said, drinking too much alcohol is bad for your health. This wine isn't for drinking in the morning, it's for drinking at night. Kurane walked up to the sofa. She stretched out her hands, starting from her rounded buttocks and moving them down to smooth out her dress before slowly sitting down. Night. Kitazawa laughed and asked, "Are you planning to have 2 meals at my house?" "This is called reciprocity." Kurane sat upright with her legs together, and asked with a smile, "Do you remember how many meals you've eaten at my house? So, are you planning to eat Ichiraku ramen, or should I cook it myself?" Kitazawa sat opposite her and placed the wine on the coffee table. "Of course, you should cook it yourself." Kurane touched her chin and said, "I haven't really eaten any of your cooking yet. Don't have too high hopes." Kitazawa shrugged and said, "The taste is just so-so. I'm not a particular person." Kurane took out 2 scrolls and asked, "Shall we begin researching illusion magic now? Wait for me for half an hour." Kitazawa stood up and said, "I have to go out for a bit." "Well." Kurane didn't mind, took out a pen, and said, "I'll study it first." "Ah." Kitazawa changed his shoes and left home. On the way, he bought 2 slices of bread for breakfast. Kitazawa had never been to Naruto's house, but his address was on his student file. Soon, he arrived at his destination, a slightly old-looking 2-story house. Kitazawa raised his hand and knocked on the door. "Teacher Kitazawa." The door opened, and Naruto Uzumaki, dressed in a green bodysuit, looked on with surprise. "Are you going out?" Kitazawa glanced at his clothes and gave a slight smirk. "I've been going for morning runs with Uncle Kai and Xiao Li lately." Naruto Uzumaki replied. "Xiao Li?" Kitazawa raised an eyebrow. It seems his reminder had worked. Mat K has taken Rock Lee as a student and begun training him. "Your morning run today is temporarily cancelled." Kitazawa explained, "I'm going to take you to see a ninja who is skilled in transformation techniques." "Is he good?" Naruto asked curiously. "It's not a matter of whether he's good or bad, he's a very rare and special kind of ninja." Kitazawa smiled and said, "He has mastered 1,000 ninjutsu and can tailor a transformation technique just for you." "Really?" Naruto's eyes lit up. Ever since Kitazawa told him the unofficial history of Madara Uchiha, he has had many ingenious ideas about transformation techniques. "Have I lied to you?" Kitazawa countered with a question. "No." Naruto scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed. "Let's go." Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and walked out. "Wait for me." After closing the door, Naruto Uzumaki quickly chased after him. "If you have any thoughts about the transformation technique, just tell him. Don't be shy." Kitazawa thought for a moment and then gave some instructions. "Okay, Kitazawa-sensei." Naruto nodded, then suddenly remembered something and asked hesitantly, "Will he hate me?" Although he had a happy time at the Ninja Academy, his situation of being hated remained unchanged after he left the academy. "Will not." Kitazawa paused for a moment, then added, "His name is Kakashi Hatake, and he's good friends with Might Guy." Naruto Uzumaki felt much relieved after hearing this. In his opinion, anyone who could become Might Guy's good friend must be no ordinary ninja. He trained with Mat K for a while, and how should I put it, there was a sense of camaraderie. Mat K was not popular because of his bizarre behavior. And so is he. There was a knock on the door. Kakashi Hatake instinctively stood up and looked towards the door. He already guessed who it was, but for some reason, he felt a rare sense of tension. He hasn't seen Naruto Uzumaki since Minato Namikaze died. Kakashi Hatake let out a breath and opened the door. His gaze instantly fell on Naruto Uzumaki, especially his golden hair. "Kakashi." Kitazawa introduced, "This is Naruto Uzumaki." "Hello, Kakashi-sensei." Naruto Uzumaki, always an outgoing person, immediately greeted everyone excitedly. "Teacher?" Kakashi Hatake was momentarily dazed upon hearing the familiar address. He was stunned for 2 seconds before he came to his senses. Ah. Kakashi Hatake responded calmly. You guys chat. Kitazawa promptly said, I have other matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave now. I heard from Kitazawa that you want to develop a new transformation technique. After Kitazawa left, Kakashi Hatake turned and walked into the living room. Okay. Naruto Uzumaki nodded emphatically and asked again, Kakashi-sensei, can you help me? It's just a small favor. Kakashi Hatake, brimming with confidence, asked, what are your thoughts? I want to use a transformation spell to become a stunningly beautiful woman to confuse the enemy. Naruto Uzumaki said with great interest. Kakashi Hatake froze, a question mark appearing on his face. Is your idea correct? Who taught you that? Jiraiya? Or the Hokage? Kakashi-sensei. Naruto Uzumaki remembered something Kitazawa had once said and asked, do you know what a stunningly beautiful and lewd woman looks like? Kakashi Hatake hesitated, wanting to say something but unsure what to say. In short, Kitazawa, you've ruined my life. Chapter 40 Kurane Ui, let's take a bath together? Kitazawa didn't know if Kakashi Hatake was in pain, but he was quite happy. In his line of sight, Kurane Ui leaned forward, her snow-white arms bracing against the coffee table, her red dress swaying outwards under the weight. Because of the close proximity, he could smell a faint fragrance. I don't know if it's my natural body odor or the scent of the shampoo. Just then, Kurane Ui suddenly raised her head. Kitazawa instinctively met her ruby-like eyes. You weren't like this before. Kurane sat up straight and squinted as she spoke. Kitazawa wasn't so bold in the past. Although he was gentle to everyone, he always kept a certain distance from them. Now he can actually peek openly and honestly. People change all the time. Kitazawa smiled. Kurane looked at him and was momentarily stunned. She suddenly noticed Kitazawa's biggest change, he was now very confident. Although I don't understand why, a confident and handsome man is indeed pleasing to the eye. This is also why Kurane Ui wasn't angry even though she was spied on. I like you better the way you are now. Kurane smiled, then returned to the main topic and asked, what are your thoughts on Yakumo's second genjutsu? Talk therapy is about getting the target to lower their guard and eliminate mental fatigue. Kitazawa pondered for a moment and said, I think the second illusion can be taken a step further, making the target uncontrollably reveal their true thoughts. He referenced the truth-revealing elixir from his previous life. This illusion technique can also be called the truth-revealing technique. The second illusion is obviously more difficult, at least C level, maybe even B level. Kurane Ui said thoughtfully. It is indeed quite troublesome. Kitazawa said with a smile, but we have plenty of time, so we can study it slowly. 2. Kurane nodded, then asked, is it still a sound illusion? To reduce the difficulty, I think we can start from the visual aspect. Kitazawa paused for a moment and said, for example, the technique of modifying the magical realm, this is not the place. Good idea. Kurane Ui's spirits lifted, and she spoke. The magical technique of where is not here works on the visual field, changing what the target sees. For example, misleading the target to mistake one place for another. In the original work, Kotetsu once used this technique to make a genin taking the Chunin exams go to the wrong classroom. We can absolutely make the patient see Yakumo Kurama as the person he trusts most. Kurane said excitedly. Good. Kitazawa smiled and praised, you reacted very quickly. I was just expanding on your ideas. Kurane looked him up and down and asked, when did you become so smart? People change all the time. Kitazawa repeated his previous statement. Do you know the magic technique of where is not here? Kurane looked away and asked. Will not. Kitazawa shook his head and said. It seems I can still be of help. Kurane chuckled, took out a ninjutsu scroll, and asked, do you want to learn it? No need to waste time. Kitazawa refused, saying, what you've learned is enough. Well. Kurane knew that Kitazawa was skilled in wind release, so she didn't try to persuade him further. Time passes slowly. The sunlight outside the window gradually weakened, leaving only a sliver of red glow on the horizon. Come on, drink. Kurane picked up her wine glass and said excitedly. After a busy day, the two finished their research on illusion magic, sat down at the table, and began to eat dinner. Cheers! Kitazawa smiled and clinked glasses with her, then drank it all in one gulp. What? Kurane Yui let out a long sigh of relief. She swayed as she sat down, her red dress billowing and revealing her curvaceous figure. Full. Kurane Yui handed over a wine glass. Kitazawa picked up the wine jug, about to pour her some wine, but quickly realized that the jug in his hand was light and flimsy. He shook the pot twice, and there was no more sound of water coming out of it. That's enough for today, we've finished drinking. Kitazawa put down the wine jug and said. What did you say? Kurane Yui suddenly stood up, pressed her cheek against Kitazawa's, and asked. The aroma of alcohol and fragrance wafted towards me. Kitazawa's eyes darted around, and he could see those soft, rosy lips. He reached out and pressed down on Kurane's shoulder, helping her to sit up again. The wine you brought is all gone. Kitazawa raised his voice and shouted. Then let's go buy some more. Without the slightest hesitation, Kurane Yui said. Not buying. Kitazawa shook his head and said, drinking too much is no good. What? Kurane glared at him and asked fiercely, Are you going to buy it or not? Not buying. Kitazawa said without fear. You bastard, I'll remember you. Kurane Yui stared until her eyes were tired, biting her fingers and saying with a look of resentment. All right, you rest for a while. I'll take you home after I finish washing the dishes. Kitazawa couldn't help but laugh. Kurane Yui gave a soft snort, stood up, walked to the sofa, and pounced on it. With her movement, her full buttocks jiggled. Kitazawa cleared the table and carried the bowls and chopsticks into the kitchen. A dozen minutes later, he took off his apron and returned to the living room. It's time to go back, Red. Kitazawa looked at Kurane lying on the sofa and spoke. No. I won't go back. Kurane waved her hand, turned over, and her red skirt was half fallen. How? Kitazawa asked with a smile, are you planning to sleep here? Can't you? Kurane sat up and said, since I'm coming back tomorrow anyway, I might as well stay. I don't want the hassle. You sure? Kitazawa paused for a moment, then asked. Okay, I'm going to take a shower now. Where's your bathroom? Kurane Yui swayed as she got up and asked. Over there. Seeing this, Kitazawa said nothing more. His house is quite big, it could easily accommodate 3 people. Be careful. Kitazawa stepped forward and helped her up. I'm fine. Yui Kurane nudged him with her elbow and said. Did you bring a change of clothes? When they reached the bathroom door, Kitazawa released her and asked. Bring it. Kurane Yui stepped back, leaning against the door, and said. As ninjas, they would always carry daily necessities and clothing with them in case of emergency. Of course, it usually has to be Chunin or Jonin, most genin can't afford summoning scrolls. Okay, call me if you have any questions. Kitazawa nodded and said. Kurane took 2 steps, then suddenly turned around and looked at him. She remembered how Kitazawa had firmly refused to let her buy him alcohol before. Want to take a shower together? With a smile, Xiri Hong teasedly asked. The smile on her face seemed to say, I bet you wouldn't dare. Okay. Kitazawa said this and walked towards her. Kurane's smile froze, and a sense of panic welled up inside her. She quickly stepped back and slammed the bathroom door shut. I've changed my mind. I'm going to take a shower myself. You're not allowed in. Kurane leaned against the door, feeling her heart race and her face flush. End of the video. Like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more novels like this.